The tale begins with a witch sleeping for 1,000 years, sought out by a young, golden-haired prince. Unfortunately, the prince who found her was just a small, bewildered child. So the dark-haired witch took the young blonde prince by the hand, raising him herself. But she abandoned him at age 15, and when he didn't return, she fell asleep once more. The prince, now grown, amassed power through a magical book and his sword, ready for his quest. He fought through a monstrous forest to reach the small castle where the witch slumbered. The dark-haired witch sleeps peacefully, unaware of the prince's return. A decade had passed since the prince had last seen her. Overjoyed, the prince burned her forest and castle before proposing to the bewildered witch. A hand closes the storybook, concluding with a classic happily ever after. Tap. A blonde-haired man sits by the bedside of a sleeping, dark-haired woman, book in hand, questioning the story. The man, looking down fondly, confirms the story is about them, addressing her as Ariel. He leans close to Ariel, his eyes filled with a dangerous passion, confessing his love is so strong he wants to destroy her. The man is introduced as Richard Cedric Windlerum, Emperor of Elysium, the prince the witch raised. The witch is identified as Ariel Ashilde Louisa Arundel, who now looks on with concern. Richard asks if she minds being destroyed, but Ariel deflects, suggesting they just call it love. Richard pauses, adjusting his coat as he considers her words. Ariel watches him nervously, a bead of sweat on her temple. He smiles dazzlingly, clarifying that destruction is their ultimate goal together. Whack! Ariel smacks Richard with a pillow, furious at his non-answer. She angrily demands that he explain the process of their destructive love. Richard casually toys with her hair, questioning her curiosity and beginning to suggest an alternative. He intensely suggests they can just figure out the process as they go along. Ariel looks utterly defeated by his logic, thinking he can't be serious. She remembers her peaceful domain, a cozy forest where she slept before the emperor dragged her away. Ariel reflects on the absurdity of the child she raised becoming the emperor. Awakening in the new world, she was shocked to find 1,000 years had passed and technology had advanced to airships. Ariel looks stunned beside a smiling Emperor Richard, both now in modern attire. The vibrant new capital city bustles with airships under a massive magical seal. In a simplified doodle, a confused Ariel and Richard wonder where they are. At a magnificent palace, unseen nobles begin to gossip about the emperor bringing a common village girl. A group of ladies sneer, assuming she's a clumsy girl from the monster-infested countryside. Ariel overhears their loud whispers, her expression hardening with irritation. One of the gossiping women leans in, eager to add a worse detail. The ladies mock her for being illiterate, questioning why the emperor would bring such an ignorant woman to the palace. Ariel feels the sting of their insults, picturing herself surrounded by skulls and crossbones. Her true power surfaces as she remembers her identity, Princess Ashilde, a great wizard from the kingdom of Arundel. She internally rages at the unfairness of being called illiterate, just because the writing system changed over 1,000 years. As two cloaked figures discuss an artifact from the monster forest, Ariel realizes with a shock they mean her home. One of the ancient books from her home falls from a stack, landing open on a desk. The text is revealed to be the language of the long-lost Arundel kingdom. Excitement ripples through unseen observers as they wonder if a new form of ancient magic is about to be revealed. As researchers clamor to begin analysis, Ariel steps in, telling them to wait. She instantly recognizes the handwriting. It's from a book she left in her old cabin. Panic strikes Ariel as she realizes the ancient artifact is her embarrassing teenage diary. A voice shouts from down the hall, ordering people to get out of the way. Ariel frantically blocks the path of two servants, who demand to know who she is. The servants are shocked to learn the ignorant woman is the emperor's guest, leaving Ariel frozen in humiliation. Ariel seethes with comical rage after being insulted yet again. Regaining her royal composure, Ariel declares she's a princess, not a country girl, before realizing her diary is the real problem. The ancient artifact is revealed to be a simple, ornate diary. Horrified, she realizes the artifact is her mortifying diary, a record of her dark past. Researchers marvel at their discovery, certain they've found an authentic manuscript from the great wizard Ashilde. As they celebrate, Ariel is consumed by dread, remembering the cringeworthy contents of her diary. Her life feels ruined as she wonders where everything went wrong and how to fix this tangled mess. She recalls the beginning of her troubles, starting about 15 years ago in her peaceful forest home. Her story begins on a day like any other, lost in a deep slumber surrounded by roses. She slept peacefully in her secluded cottage, completely unaware of the world outside. Her long sleep was suddenly disturbed by the arrival of a young, blonde-haired boy. Startled from her rest, her golden eyes flicker open as she senses the intruder. The visitor was a small, well-dressed boy with brilliant blue eyes, holding a small dagger. Looking down at her, the young boy states with surprise that she's alive. Her shock turns to alarm as she finds the cold steel of a dagger pressed against her throat. The child innocently wonders if stabbing her would keep her asleep, leaving her to silently rage at his insanity. Panicked, she explains that stabbing leads to death, not waking up, and begs him to put the knife down. This strange, violent child is revealed to be Richard Cedric Windlerum, the future emperor. He considers her words with unnerving curiosity, simply asking if that's so. And with that strange encounter in her forest cottage, that was the beginning of everything. She remembers the exact moment it all began, when that damn blonde kid first appeared at her door. He walked into her home, an unwelcome visitor from the outside world, interrupting her long slumber. He had braved the dangerous eastern monster forest, a place filled with thorny vines and monsters, where time itself had stopped. Here, Ashilde, princess and archmage of Arundel, had spent countless years alone in her sanctuary. Bound by an ancient seal, she would sleep for decades at a time, only waking briefly when its power waned. Waking from a long sleep always meant she had a busy schedule to attend to. Her first priority was always to inspect the glowing magic circle that maintained the forest's seal. The intricate runes pulsed with power, holding the darkness of the forest at bay. After checking the seal, she would dedicate her limited waking hours to studying magic. Thump, thump! But her studies were interrupted by a loud pounding on the door and a voice demanding to be let in. Annoyed, she decides to simply ignore the disturbance, pretending she can't hear a thing. As the banging intensifies, she covers her ears, desperately trying to block out the noise. Crash! Her attempts at ignoring him fail spectacularly, as the door explodes into splinters. Ariel stares in disbelief as the small blonde boy stands amidst the rubble of her front door, looking confused. He smiles cheerfully at his handiwork, while Ariel internally seethes at the crazy idiot. Her silent fury erupts as she wonders what on earth is wrong with this destructive child. The boy calmly processes her earlier warning, concluding that stabbing her in the neck would indeed be fatal. His attention quickly shifts, and he begins to admire the interesting objects in her home. Crash! He breaks her plates, offering a flimsy excuse as Ariel furiously reminds him this isn't a playground. Turning to face her, the boy bluntly asks what, exactly, she is. Ariel glares, explaining that this is a forbidden forest where no one has been able to enter for a long time. The boy simply stares back at her, his expression unreadable. He claims his mother told him not to talk to strangers, prompting Ariel's enraged retort about his earlier murder attempt. He justifies his actions with the simple fact that it worked. She did wake up. He references classic fairy tales where a princess is always awakened by a prince's kiss. But as he explains, his attempt at a fairy tale kiss had failed completely. She just kept sleeping. He innocently explains his logic, believing a simple kiss should have been enough to wake her. When the kiss failed, he concluded that she must be a witch, which is why the curse wasn't broken. Enraged by his logic, she furiously kicks the little shit out of her house. He nonchalantly mentions his next attempt was suffocation, causing Ariel to scream in horror. He explains he only stopped because his mother told him not to kill people, an oddly comforting piece of advice. He then reveals he considered smashing her head with a rock, but once again his mother's advice saved her. The blonde boy smiles cheerfully, explaining he thought stabbing her in the neck might wake her from the pain. Shielding her eyes from his blinding cheerfulness, she reminds him of his mother's rule not to kill people. Ashild reflects with relief that she woke up just in time to avoid an incredibly embarrassing death. The boy suddenly runs deeper into her cottage, leaving her to watch him go. Frustrated, she wishes he would just go home as he reaches out toward a bright, sunlit window. Wah! He is suddenly enveloped in a brilliant golden aura, feeling the immense magical power of Archmage Ashilde. Ashild looks on in stunned silence, her golden eyes wide with shock. She silently questions how he could possibly sense her magic, dismissing the idea as utter nonsense. Grabbing the boy by the shoulders, she frantically asks how he knows her name and about magic. Realizing hundreds of years have passed, she wonders how this child could know anything about her erased history. As he stares at her, she questions how he could possibly know the magic flowing through the forest is hers. He explains he learned about ancient ruins and a magic circle designed to preserve Archmage Ashilde's power. In a flashback, he's told only a remnant of power was left in an artifact, but he now feels her magic throughout the forest. Surrounded by magical energy, he explains that because time is stopped in the forest, her power remains strong here. Ashilde stares, realizing the forest's magic is flowing around the child, drawn to him. The ancient magic of the forest seems to be welcoming the boy's own powerful magical potential. Snapping out of the magical moment, the boy suddenly announces that he has to leave. Ashild watches in confusion as he turns to go. He stands in the center of a glowing magic circle on the forest floor, dwarfed by the ancient woods around him. He smiles brightly, promising to bring toys on his next visit. Poof! As he steps away, the magic circle activates, bathing him in a column of golden light. Ashilda looks on in absolute disbelief, thinking it's impossible. The boy grins, surrounded by sparkling motes of light and flowers. She realizes with horror that he just used a magic circle complex enough to require a first-class wizard. She tries to convince herself to ignore the genius child, deciding not to get involved. Annoyed, she scolds a sentient tree, ordering it to stop intruders and quit pretending to be ordinary. The boy peeks through the broken door, happily greeting her, as she admits his presence is impossible to ignore. She asks him how he managed to get through the door, wondering if he has special abilities. The tree monster explains that the boy simply told him he could do it, then tore the door open himself. She accuses the boy of breaking the tree monster's branches, but he explains a branch actually saved him from a fall. Stunned, she clarifies that a tree monster saved him, but he insists it just caught him. A moment of understanding dawns on her as she looks out at the sunlit woods. The forest loves children. The forest, hostile to all other intruders, has accepted this child due to the immensely strong magical power within him. Wrapped harmlessly by thorny vines and white roses, the boy smiles, and she finally understands why he was allowed entry. She glares at the sentient tree and its friendly vine, muttering, "Traitors." The tree monster cheerfully invites the boy to play, prompting an enraged Ashilde to ask if this is a playground. Ashilde stares with a deadpan, unimpressed expression. As the boy plays happily with a wooden stick, she watches him with a concerned, analytical gaze. She looks closer, thinking that the marks on him are not from simply playing. Her eyes narrow as she identifies old cuts and bruises, realizing he has been abused for some time. His fine clothes suggest he's from a wealthy, noble family, one grand enough to have a magic circle in its garden. She grimly concludes that in such a household, the only ones who could inflict such injuries would be his own family or those closest to him. With a sigh, she decides not to get involved in his dangerous family situation. She tries to rationalize his presence by comparing him to a stray golden puppy who wandered into her yard. Having resolved to ignore him, she walks through the forest, unaware he's happily climbing a tree right behind her. Startled, she looks up as he waves from a branch, gleefully pointing out that they made eye contact. She reflects on her failed hope that the forest would finally return to its former quiet state. Sitting at her desk, she sighs with weary resignation, muttering, "You're here again," as the boy's blonde head appears in the corner. A flashback reveals the boy is the child of a mother from a powerless family, standing alone in a vast hall. He was accustomed to being ignored in the imperial palace, as two maids watch him walk away. The maids whisper, with one asking if the other will greet him, only to be met with feigned ignorance. Realization dawns as the second maid remembers him as the boy from the fallen family. A larger, reddish-blonde boy identified as Frederick Brian Windlerum confronts him, calling him dumb. Brian, noted as being born only 5 months earlier, coldly asks the blonde boy where he wants to be hit today. Back in the present, Ariel scolds the boy for fighting his half-brother, chiding him for ruining his pretty face. Bandaged but unfazed, he calmly remarks that brothers fight and he should have protected his face. He then calmly confesses that he killed his brother's horse, leaving Ariel stunned. Ariel stammers in disbelief as the boy explains his brother was bothering him, and he simply wanted him gone. He adds that his mother didn't want him to kill his brother, prompting a worried Ariel to confirm he didn't. A flashback shows the boy setting a tripwire in the woods, causing his brother's horse to fall and throw its rider. The boy laments that only the horse died, admitting he wishes his brother had died instead. Ariel thinks he's strange, her concern overshadowed by sadness for the poor horse. He continues that his mother's advice is why he didn't kill him, as Ariel thinks being annoying isn't a good reason to be killed. He horrifies Ariel by admitting he also wanted to pop his brother's eyes out, but his mother opposed that idea as well. Forcing a smile, Ariel tries to dismiss it as typical sibling behavior, while internally screaming, "What the hell is wrong with this kid?" He smiles brightly explaining he'll endure it until adulthood, leaving Ariel deeply unsettled by his cheerful promise. Despite her unease, Ariel is glad he's a good listener, concluding his mother is working hard on his character education. She reflects that while he has the temper of a villain, his mother is trying to correct it through indoctrination. Genuinely impressed, Ariel praises his mother as an admirable person and asks what she does for a living. The boy smiles softly, vowing to fulfill his mother's wishes. Ariel sadly thinks to herself, "May she rest in peace." She muses that if his mother had lived, he might have learned better social skills, especially with such an angelic face. A brightly colored pinwheel lollipop is held up invitingly. Noting his bruises are old, Ariel offers him a jar of equally old candies. The boy places the lollipop in his mouth, trailing off with a simple, "Well," wham. A flashback shows Brian yelling, "Cedric, you punk!" as he charges forward. Brian, now injured himself, furiously accuses the blonde boy, Cedric, of killing his horse. He continues his tirade, blaming Cedric for his own broken leg. Cedric looks on with cold eyes, thinking it's a shame his brother didn't hit his skull too. Thud! Blood spatters against a wall as Cedric is violently thrown to the ground. Brian, now on crutches, stands over the beaten Cedric, seething with rage. As maids watch in fear, Brian vows to kill the disgraceful Cedric, but they are too afraid of Brian's temper to intervene. One maid scoffs at the other's cowardice, calling them stupid. The scene flashes to nobles, gossiping about Cedric being an abandoned, powerless prince, the son of a mere maid. The brutal beating continues as Brian stands over the collapsed Cedric. Brian screams a final threat, vowing to kill Cedric if he ever sees him again. Cedric pushes himself up from the floor, coughing up a pool of blood. He calmly wipes the blood from his mouth with the back of his hand. Looking up with a bloodied face, he quietly asks his tormentor, "Are you done?" Brian's face contorts in absolute shock and fear at Cedric's resilience. Defeated, he can only scream, "Die!" as Cedric lies on the floor. Back in the present, Ariel understands his mother came from a powerless family. She realizes with dawning horror that after his mother's death, no one cared when he was bullied, leaving him to endure it all alone. Ariel asks if anyone takes care of him now, and he replies that a servant does. He explains, the servant gives him clothes and food, which Ariel thinks is the absolute bare minimum a servant should do. Finding the candy delicious, Cedric asks for more, and Ariel points him toward the supply. His eyes light up as he sees a large glass jar filled with candies, letting out an impressed, "Wow." Humming happily, the bandaged blonde boy holds up candy canes and a lollipop, glad he made some in advance. The dark-haired woman looks on thoughtfully, believing she now understands something. She realizes the forest allows the child to stay and play, because it's his only refuge, as he's shown happily perched atop a sentient tree. In a starkly contrasting scene, the small blonde boy stands utterly alone in a vast, cold hall filled with the silhouettes of uncaring nobles. Standing before a grand window, he resigns himself to living alone somewhere within the massive mansion. The narration explains that only in the forest could the child truly smile, which is why he always returned to its gentle embrace. AHK. Startled, the dark-haired woman turns as the boy holds a small object to his ear. She asks why he's taking his bandage off, and he insists he feels better. She checks his temperature, pleased that her medicine worked so well. The boy praises her skill, saying witches are good at making medicine, which prompts her to furiously shout that she's not a witch. He looks at her with wide, innocent eyes and asks, "Then what are you?" She is completely caught off guard by his simple question. She spirals into a panicked internal monologue, unable to explain she's the great wizard Ashilde, questioning her own immortality, lack of magic, and agelessness. She resolves that she must hide her true identity as the great wizard Ashilde. Putting on a confident smile, she composes herself, surrounded by a magical aura of pink flowers. The boy looks up at her, a slight blush on his cheeks. He tells Ariel his mother used to call him Seedy, then shyly invites her to call him Seedy as well. Ariel smiles and gently ruffles his blonde hair. With a warm smile, she tells Seedy he is welcome to come play in the forest whenever he wants, free from all worry. He looks at her softly and observes that she is smiling too. Time passes as Seedy continues to visit the forest, playing happily by himself on a swing made by the sentient tree. Ariel spots a new bruise on his face, chiding him for getting hurt again and telling him not to dismiss it as nothing. Looking at her cottage, she resolves to study medicine more so she can create effective treatments for him. She wistfully thinks that he will one day outgrow the forest, but until then, they will stay together. After treating his wounds, she tells him he's all done and can go play, which he confirms with a question. She reflects on her desire to care for him, no matter the circumstances, and keep them both safe from harm. Sitting at her table, she greets his return, only to be met with the sight of a dagger dripping fresh blood. Her golden eye widens in absolute shock. Seedy stands at the door, his clothes and face spattered with blood as he clutches the small, bloody dagger. His expression is cold and distant, his bright blue eyes staring forward from his blood-stained face. A new chapter begins. Horrified, Ariel wonders what he did, thinking he looks smug and sociopathic as he walks toward her. She screams at the sight of the blood, but he calmly states it's not his and that he's hungry, leaving her aghast. As he asks for food, she finally erupts, demanding to know what he's been doing. He calmly explains it was because of Brian, leading a horrified Ariel to ask if his brother covered him in blood. Believing he brutally beat his brother, she seethes with anger, thinking he's the cruelest child ever. Seedy clarifies that his brother was bragging about his new horse, causing Ariel to pause in confusion. A flashback begins with a voice off-screen contemptuously calling out, "Hey, beggar!" Brian taunts Cedric about his new horse, smugly asking if he plans to kill this one too. Servants warn Brian that the horse is untrained and dangerous, offering to handle it for him. Leading the massive horse closer, Brian sneers at Cedric, asking if he's scared. With a cruel grin, Brian violently cracks a whip. The horse screams in pain and terror, rearing back wildly. Cedric's eyes widen as a powerful hoof descends toward him. A violent spray of blood erupts. Thud! The horse crashes to the ground in a bloody heap. As the handlers panic over the horse's severed artery, Cedric stands nearby, splattered in its blood. The scene fades on the sheer impossibility of the event. Covered in blood, Cedric calmly states that it is dangerous. With a cold look, he thinks that his brother Brian keeps killing his pets. He turns to his terrified, stammering brother and asks, "What are you going to do?" A small blonde boy runs toward a blood-spattered woman, crying out, "Mommy!" as two men shout for His Highness to wait. The dark-haired woman, Ariel, asks with a stern expression if he really held a blade to someone's throat. Still splattered with blood, the boy, Sidi, insists it was a dangerous situation where he could have died. Ariel gently holds his face, reassuring him he did the right thing and must stay safe by attacking first when in danger. In a cute doodle, she praises his learning, but then mentally scolds herself for training a budding criminal when his brother is the one who needs to reflect. Whack! Now determined, Ariel brandishes a small axe behind her back as Sidi watches. Amidst floating soap bubbles in a warm bathroom, Ariel reflects that she knew he had personality and behavior problems. She vigorously scrubs Sidi's hair in a tub full of bubbles, warning him not to attack her, while reminding herself she's not responsible for him. From outside her cottage, she complains in frustration that no matter how much she wipes, he's still dirty. Now clean, Sidi stands in an oversized nightshirt as Ariel expresses her relief that she still had Daniel's old clothes for him. Ariel asks why no one stopped him from wandering around covered in blood. He explains that his servants are usually busy. When he clarifies that none of the servants came to him, she furiously realizes they're looking down on him. An off-screen Sidi tells Ariel she's frowning again and that he's fine, as the scene focuses on the cottage's wooden ceiling. She angrily questions what he means by fine, just as the sentient tree peeks in the window with a wide, happy grin. Sidi tells the tree he remembered his mother's warning that after her death, anyone approaching him would have ulterior motives. He continues to explain his mother's cynical advice. No one would want him if he had nothing, so he must always be careful. Ariel listens thoughtfully, conceding that his mother's assessment was likely true. In a memory, Sidi's mother holds him as narration questions how a child with a powerless mother could survive alone. The memory continues to his mother's funeral, where he stands alone, learning that survival requires constant vigilance and suspicion. The narration laments how lonely the child will be during the long time it takes to grow up as he sits by a gravestone. Sidi sits alone by the grave, the narration concluding his mother gave her harsh advice knowing what his future held. Back in the present, a small, magical bird lands on his finger, making him smile as Ariel thinks he's the type to cause a stir. He looks up with wide, innocent blue eyes and asks, "Am I pretty?" From across the room, Ariel asks if he's never been called pretty before, and he replies that people have called him scary. He recalls the image of himself covered in blood, explaining it's scary to see a child holding a knife and smiling so casually. Surrounded by blossoms, Ariel preens, assuming he's complimenting her and proudly agreeing that she is, of course, pretty. Holding a piece of bread, Sidi clarifies he wasn't talking about her face, leaving her deflated as she asks for her bread back. He smiles brightly and, gesturing with the bread, says, "That's pretty." He explains that only Ariel is surrounded by such beautiful colors, describing the red, yellow, and green lights that shine around her. As Sidi eats, Ariel wonders if he possesses magical eyes or even the qualities of a great wizard. He suddenly grabs her wrist, urging her to come with him and accidentally dropping his bread in his excitement. Outside, Ariel shows him a magic circle in a book and tells him to connect the colors he sees in the same shape. Holding the ornate book, Sidi questions the magical circles as she instructs him to connect the red and green dots with magic. Sidi exclaims in awe as a glowing blue magic circle appears, while a stunned Ariel wonders how he did it so easily. Whoosh! The simple circle suddenly erupts into a massive raging inferno, catching Sidi by surprise. Swirling flames engulf Sidi as he marvels, "Wow, did I do that?" Caught in the fiery vortex, Ariel realizes with horror that he cast an intermediate-level fire spell by just connecting 2 points. Sidi stands amidst the swirling inferno, amazed by the power he just unleashed. Ariel stares in disbelief from within the fiery magic circle, questioning how he completed such a complex spell with only 2 magic points. The magical fire whips around Ariel's dark hair. She looks around, bewildered by the sudden escalation of power. The inferno rages, its flames licking at the air. The sentient tree catches fire and screams in agony, prompting Ariel to yell for water magic as CD calmly finds a new symbol in his book. A massive torrent of magical water surges forth. Whoosh! The powerful wave of water douses the burning tree. CD innocently explains that he just traced what he saw, and the magic circle appeared, asking if that's how it's supposed to work. A tear of awe rolls down Ariel's cheek as she looks at him and declares, "You're a genius." She grabs his shoulders excitedly, proclaiming that meeting a genius archmage like him in her sealed forest must be fate. Over images of glowing runes and grimoires, Ariel admits she was overcome with greed and the desire to raise this talented child into a great wizard. Depicted with angel wings, she reconsiders, thinking that it takes too much proper conduct to make him her disciple after all. Ariel's devilish side rationalizes that Cedric doesn't need good conduct, he just needs to be good at magic. She considers that time passes slowly in her forest, which would delay his growth, but decides taking 10 to 15 years to teach him is acceptable. After dismissing an old saying about black-haired people, she happily remembers that CD is blonde. Deciding to teach him, she thinks she can make him pretty, despite his personality, and her thoughts are interrupted as Cedric calls her name. Bump! She decisively places her hand on the young boy's shoulder. Ariel excitedly offers to teach CD magic, cheerfully deciding her future self can deal with any consequences. The boy looks up in confusion, asking if Ariel will really teach him magic. She eggs him on, saying he could even beat Brian, as her angelic side frets while her devilish side delights in the potential chaos. A determined chibi Ariel pumps her fists, ready for action, leaving a nervous Cedric to sweat bullets. Cedric agrees to learn magic if she wants him to, though he admits Brian is still formidable. Ariel promises to pick out a magic book for him to look at before his next visit. As he stands outside, she tells him she's heading down to her basement study. Cedric tentatively confirms that she knows magic well. Searching through her vast library, she pulls a book from a high shelf, certain it will be a good choice. She watches in utter shock as CD, sitting with the book, asks if the markings on the page are letters. Leaning in, she confirms in disbelief that he doesn't know the letters, and he explains he has never seen writing like it before. With an awkward smile, she struggles to process the fact that the young master of a grand mansion is completely illiterate. Cedric explains he had a tutor before his mother passed away, noting the letters are complicated. Ariel stares with growing concern as the pieces of his neglect fall into place. She realizes with fury that his family is deliberately keeping him uneducated to ensure he becomes a useless adult. As Cedric looks up from his book, Ariel silently vows to ruthlessly destroy those responsible for his neglect. Filled with a fiery resolve, she declares she will teach CD diligently and make him a brilliant wizard. Realizing her mistake, she stops herself and rushes back to the library to find a basic writing book first. Cedric muses that he knows modern letters, not ancient ones, but decides that learning the old scripts seems fun. Ariel frantically searches her library, looking for any book that can teach him the basics of reading. She pulls out a children's picture book, deciding it will be useful even if it's not a complete guide. Carrying a stack of books, she wonders why a man named Daniel kept picture books in his magic lab. Cedric catches her mention of the name and asks who Daniel is. He then asks, pointedly, if there's anyone else living in the cottage with her. Ariel, leading him into the basement, she explains that this library is where she stores miscellaneous books she rarely reads, like picture books. A spark of excitement lights up her face as she gazes around the vast collection of books. CD marvels at the number of rare books, prompting Ariel to passionately declare that she will make him the best wizard. Opening a children's storybook, she decides to begin his lessons with a simple fairy tale. The scene transitions from the lush green cottage to a snowy landscape, marking the passage of time. Snow falls outside a cozy, candlelit window as the lessons continue through the winter. Draped in a warm shawl, Ariel concludes the day's lesson, while Cedric continues to study diligently at his desk. Ariel presents a magic tome, explaining that since he can read now, she can finally teach him magic after his long study of the basics. Cedric startles her by revealing he can see magical powers, suggesting he only needs to memorize magic circles, not read them. Ariel immediately scolds him, stressing that simply memorizing shapes won't lead to a deep understanding of magic. She passionately lectures on the importance of principles, as an unimpressed Cedric mutters that she's a magic fanatic who can't even use magic. The boy internally bites back the retort, so what if the Archmage is a magic fan? As Cedric prepares to leave for the day, Ariel calls out for him to wait. She offers him an ornate red book, explaining it's a collection of simple magic circles, perfect for him to study on his own. Cedric looks at the gift in disbelief, asking if she is really giving it to him. Ariel clarifies that she wants him to study with it, but tells him he can have it if he wants it. His eyes sparkle with pure delight as he whispers a soft "wow." He hugs the precious book tightly to his chest, a blissful smile on his face as he's surrounded by an aura of flowers. CD joyfully holds up his first book, exclaiming how much he likes it, while Ariel sadly reflects that he acts like he's never owned one before. The chapter concludes, shifting the scene to a lavish, empty, and silent room in a grand palace. In his lavish bedroom, CD studies the book from Ariel, realizing the text contains ancient magical symbols from the lost kingdom of Arundel. He thinks of Ariel, the mysterious woman with dark hair and striking golden eyes. The narration identifies Ariel as the woman who is sleeping alone in the magic-filled forest. Looking at the book she gave him, CD admits to himself that he is curious about who she is. As the moon shines outside, he reflects that his curiosity only grows and wonders if this is the feeling his mother spoke of. Clutching the precious book, CD drifts off to sleep, filled with the desire to learn everything about Ariel. As he sleeps soundly, a shadowy figure quietly enters his room, the door creaking open. Morning light streams in, and a groggy CD begins to wake up, murmuring that he's still sleepy. Sitting up in his large bed, he notes how bright the sun is. Remembering he fell asleep while reading, he glances at his bedside table and his eyes fly open in shock. The book is gone. Panicked, CD resolves to find a servant, believing the one in charge of his room must have seen the book. He imagines asking the green-haired servant where his book has gone. In a different room, a chubby blonde boy named Brian holds the book, telling a servant he found it and questioning why CD would steal it. The ornate purple book, with its beautiful filigree and glowing blue gem, is held tightly. CD's expression hardens as he thinks of his missing book. His anger flares as he remembers it was the special book that Ariel gave him. In a grand hall, the green-haired servant is startled as Brian confronts him with the book. Brian looks over his shoulder, confused by a sudden presence. Whoosh! An enraged CD appears barefoot in his nightgown, causing Brian to cry out in alarm. CD stares ahead with cold, unwavering determination in his bright blue eyes. Clutching the book, a sweating Brian frantically wonders what he should do. As Brian cries for his mother, CD marches forward and furiously demands, "Give me my book!" The green-haired servant watches the confrontation unfold, a bead of sweat on his brow. The servant stammers in denial as a man in a formal military uniform approaches from behind. The uniformed man walks into the tense standoff, asking what is going on. The man accuses CD of stealing the royal family's belongings, leaving CD stunned by the false claim. The uniformed man declares he will handle it, suggesting punishments like pay cuts and hard labor for the servant. Brian adds that imperial law states thieves will have their hands cut off, causing the servant to scream in terror. CD calmly tells the uniformed man that's an old law, before menacingly asking if he needs to enforce the punishment himself. The terrified servant begs for mercy and blames Brian, but the uniformed man calls him useless as a violent slash cuts through the air. Blood splatters across Ceda's face and nightgown, but his expression remains utterly blank. Holding a bloody sword, the uniformed man condemns the screaming servant for daring to blame the imperial family for his crime. The uniformed man asks CD if he's frightened by the blood, but CD coolly replies, "It's not a lot." Watching from afar, two maids whisper in fear, one noting that CD didn't even blink at the gruesome scene. One of the maids tells the other she was right. CD isn't just strange, he's completely different. CD walks away barefoot, leaving the whispering maids and the bloody scene behind him. The scene shifts to a sunny garden. where a fluffy white cat nuzzles affectionately against an arm. In a flashback, Sidi's mother sits with him on a park bench as narration explains he lacked a clear sense of right and wrong. Sidi finds the cat's nuzzling annoying, but his mother greets the animal warmly. She smiles, telling Sidi it's a good sign that the cat likes him, as it only shows affection to people it trusts. Nuzzle. Sidi playfully mimics the cat, nuzzling his mother's arm until she gently tells him that's something only cats do. The two of them walk together down a sunlit path on the vast estate grounds. Sidi remarks that cats are weird, being so small and covered in soft fur. His mother tells him they're cute and that you just have to pat their heads and call them pretty, demonstrating on Sidi. Applying this logic, Sidi asks if he should also pet flowers, since their petals are small and soft. With a gentle smile, his mother explains that's not how it works, but Sidi admits he can't tell the difference. A warm memory shows his mother's kind, smiling face, surrounded by flowers. The peaceful memory shatters as Sidi and his mother stare down in shock and horror at something on the path. The narration grimly reveals that the cat they often met on their walks was now dead. His mother looks down with a pained expression, concluding that the poor cat was trampled by a horse. Sidi recalls his mother telling him that because cats are cute, you should pat them on the head. Kneeling beside the dead cat, his mother gently corrects him, saying, "No, Sidi." She explains that you bury the dead and grieve for them, but Sidi doesn't understand the concept of grief. A pair of hands rests on a small, freshly dug grave. Holding a bouquet of daisies, Sidi admits he doesn't know what it means to be sad, only that cats and flowers are both cute. As his mother watches from behind, Sidi kneels at the grave, hoping the cat will like the flowers he brought. His mother looks on with a soft, warm smile. The daisies rest peacefully atop the small mound of earth. The memory shifts to a lavish bedroom where his mother tells a young Sidi, tucked in bed, that he can get up now. His mother's hand gently brushes his cheek as he looks at her intently. Lying weakly in bed, she tells a heartbroken Sidi that she loves him. A solemn Sidi stands by his mother's bedside as she lies gravely ill. The narration recounts that with a face full of regret, his mother closed her eyes for the last time. Standing before a display of white lilies, Sidi looks on with a somber expression. He reflects that after her death, the world was filled with colorless people, devoid of interest or excitement. He remembers wandering the palace alone, completely ignored by everyone around him. Lost in his thoughts, Sidi continues his lonely walk through the estate gardens. Venturing into a wooded area, he stops, wondering about something he sees ahead. He follows a path deeper into the woods and discovers a large, glowing magic circle etched into the ground. Stepping onto the intricate design, he wonders what kind of magic circle it is. He questions if the circle is broken, but senses the powerful magic of the great magician Ashilde, just like in the palace's antiques. He reflects that magic, with its pretty, sparkling light, was the only color in his world of gray people. Suddenly sensing a change, he looks up in confusion. A brilliant golden light erupts from the magic circle, enveloping him completely. As vines reach out from the ground, he realizes his own magic is being drawn out. He watches in shock as his energy is pulled into the circle, creating a massive pillar of light. The light flashes brightly, obscuring the entire forest. Finding himself in a completely different, sun-drenched forest, he wonders where he is. He narrates that the magic circle, activated by his own energy, had transported him to the forest. He spots a quaint house nestled among the trees, surprised to find a dwelling in such a remote place. Cautiously, he enters the house and looks around the unfamiliar space. Peeking into a bedroom, he sees a woman with long, dark hair sleeping peacefully. His eyes widen with fascination as he stares at the sleeping woman. The dark-haired woman, Ariel, sleeps soundly, her face serene. Sidi moves closer to the bed, observing that she is asleep. He watches her with an intense, curious gaze. He thinks to himself that she is pretty and seems to be glowing. Filled with a strange desire, he decides he wants to see her move. Pulling a chair to her bedside, he resolves to wait right there until she wakes up. Thump, thump. His heart beats with anticipation as he sits and watches her, consumed by curiosity. Day turns to a starry night, and still, he waits patiently by her bed. Growing impatient, he notes that she's still asleep and decides to wake her up himself. In a comical fantasy sequence, Sidi struggles to lift a giant boulder over his head, planning a very rude awakening. He stands over her with a blank expression, the heavy rock held high. Suddenly, he is teleported back to the magic circle, dropping the non-existent rock with a thud. Now back in the garden, he wonders aloud if she is still sleeping. Thump. He's startled by the sudden appearance of the sentient tree, which seems annoyed. Sidi confronts the creature, asking what it wants and accusing it of being a monster pretending to be a tree. He stares at the strange tree, his expression a mixture of determination and intrigue. Sidi stands before the sweating, anxious tree monster in the quiet forest. Narration describes a forbidden forest to the east, where time has stopped and monsters roam, a place found only in fairy tales. As he looks into the woods, Sidi contemplates the thorns and tree monsters he's encountered. The narration confirms this is the fabled Eastern Monster Forest, where time itself is frozen. Walking through the lush woods, Sidi speculates that the great wizard Ashilde's magic permeates the forest, though it feels weaker than the relics in the palace. A branch is pointed at Sidi as he bluntly tells the tree monster to move, stating he knows it's capable. Sidi pokes the creature with its own branch, demanding to know who it is and if it was created by the great wizard Ashilde. He asks if the sleeping woman is Ashilde, but the tree explains that she can't be, as she possesses no magic at all. Sidi thoughtfully considers the strange circumstances: a magical forest, monsters, and a sleeping woman of unknown identity. He turns to the confused tree monster, remarking that he's seen a situation like this before. He excitedly recalls a fairy tale his mother read to him about a prince saving a sleeping princess from a cursed forest, leaving the tree monster baffled. A brilliant smile lights up Sidi's face as he puts the pieces together. He clenches his fist and triumphantly declares to the shocked tree that he will wake her with a kiss. Returning to the bedroom, Sidi leans over the peacefully sleeping Ariel, ready to enact his fairy tale plan. He gently kisses her forehead as the scene is framed with beautiful yellow roses. With his heart pounding, he pulls back, confident that because he is the prince, the princess must now awaken. He waits in anticipation, but Ariel remains completely still and silent. His hopeful expression begins to falter as he continues to wait for a response that doesn't come. Ariel continues her deep slumber, utterly undisturbed. Sidi's shoulders slump in disappointment as he realizes she isn't waking up. In a cute, cartoonish thought bubble, he wonders if she's a witch instead of a princess. He ponders how to wake her, ruling out violent methods like hitting or strangling her. A light bulb appears as he gets an idea. He'll poke her neck with a knife, while a disapproving memory of his mother tells him that's not the answer. Holding an ornate dagger, he wonders if merely cutting her skin would be better than stabbing her. As he observes the sleeping Ariel, he thinks that the sharp knife will make the task easy. He sits on her bed, poising the dagger menacingly above her neck. Lost in his focus, a disembodied voice calls him a crazy little child, but he tunes it out as everything else fades away. With glowing yellow eyes, an awakened Ariel scolds him, explaining that stabbing someone in the neck will kill them, not wake them up. She sternly tells him to get rid of the knife, adding that she hopes he finds something precious to cherish one day. The memory fades, transitioning through a shot of leaves against a bright blue sky. Back in the present, Ariel pages through a book, asking Sidi if there's a spell to remove bloodstains. Sidi, still blood-splattered, explains to an unsurprised Ariel that a servant loyal to Brian stole the book she had given him. Ariel fumes, wishing she'd hexed Brian, while Sidi calmly adds that the cowardly boy usually attacks from behind. With a sad look, Sidi dismisses the book as unimportant and offers to let her throw it away, suggesting he'll find another. He flashes back to the day Ariel gave him the book, remembering its special meaning and thinking firmly, "It's mine." His expression hardens with anger as he clenches his jaw and says, "But he stole it." Ariel is stunned into silence, as Seedy calmly states that he cut off the servant's hands as punishment. Seeing his downcast face, Ariel gently strokes his hair and surprises him by saying, "You did well." Seedy looks up in astonishment, realizing that unlike everyone else who was terrified, Ariel is actually praising him for his actions. Ariel stands with her arms crossed, telling him it's better to fight back than to be a victim, and that it's okay to make people pay for what they did. She pats his head again, reassuringly telling him he did well before suggesting they clean the blood off him. Seedy asks if she isn't scared of him, but she denies it, clarifying she was just being careful because he threatened her with a knife before. Complaining about the strong smell of blood, Ariel begins searching for some herbal soap she made. A small, genuine smile graces Seedy's face as he watches her. As she looks for the soap, Ariel thinks to herself that she's fine with his behavior, as long as no one touches what belongs to him. In a dark and possessive thought, Seedy reveals that from the moment Ariel woke up, he considered her his. He reflects that he likes the isolated forest because no one can take her from him, as the scene shifts to Ariel washing his hair and chiding him for fidgeting. A stark, bloody slash cuts across the screen with his desperate plea, "Don't take you away from me." The scene changes to a magnificent golden library, where someone asks what kind of book they've found. Three robed figures study the purple book, marveling at its simple magic circle and wondering if anyone has tried to use it. In a grand library, the white-haired Ansel is questioned about a book. Learning its true owner is rumored to be Prince Cedric, a name he doesn't recognize. Ansel listens as an unseen person speculates about the frequently disappearing prince, while he internally dismisses the idea that Seedy could have found ruins without their knowledge. With a serious expression, Ansel contemplates the mystery surrounding this unknown prince. The scene transitions to a magnificent, sunlit palace corridor. Ansel walks with purpose down the long, opulent hall. He approaches a set of grand, ornate white doors. Peering into the room, his gaze falls upon an empty, elegant chair bathed in sunlight. A formal introduction reveals his identity, Ansel Price, a trainee attendant and an informant for the truth seekers. Reporting to a blonde-haired woman, Ansel confirms that an ancient book belonged to Prince Cedric and asks for his orders. The woman instructs him to stay close to Prince Cedric, granting him the freedom to act as he sees fit. Ansel bows his head and places a hand over his chest, accepting the new mission. The story transitions to a flashback, beginning Chapter 9. In a lush palace garden, a young, golden-haired Seedy stands alone on a stone path. His youthful profile shows a hint of determination as he looks ahead. Hiding behind hedges, two cloaked figures gasp as they spot young Seedy, who seems to sense their presence. While the cloaked figures whisper about how well hidden they are, Seedy stands impassively, thinking to himself that he can see everything. Seedy suddenly crouches down, startling the hidden figures into a panicked scream. As the cloaked figures flee, he playfully calls for them to wait for him. Seedy's thoughts reveal he recognizes them as careless wizards from the Tower of Magic. The focus shifts to an ornate, jewel-encrusted purple book, shimmering with magical energy. The young prince resolves to be cautious about entering the nearby forest. He arrives at a large magic circle etched into the ground, wary of getting caught for no reason. He pauses, turning his head as if he's heard something unexpected. Sensing a presence again, he looks into the woods with surprise, exclaiming, "Again!" Quote dot. He turns and continues on his way through the forest. He glances back, dismissing the feeling of being watched as nothing. Unseen by Seedy, a man's shoe is visible behind a tree, revealing he is being followed. A brilliant column of golden light erupts from the magic circle on the forest floor. Hiding behind a tree, Ansel curses the wizards for making him more vigilant after he was almost caught. He speculates that the magic circle in the palace garden must be a relic of the great wizard Ashilde. Kneeling to inspect the runes, Ansel identifies the relic as a still functional teleportation circle. Ansel's expression hardens as he considers the implications for His Royal Highness Cedric. Wondering where the prince teleported, the scene shifts to Ariel standing outside her home as a voice calls her name. A young Seedy runs to Ariel, who explains her 2-week absence was due to being followed by strange people. Ariel questions why Cede was also gone for 2 weeks instead of a few days, musing that time is difficult to feel in the forest. Cede complains that his pursuers are creepy and wishes they would at least try to be subtle. With a smirk, Ariel notes that wizards lack social skills, and Cede pouts in agreement. Her expression turns serious as she considers the problem of Cede being followed. Cede cheerfully plays with a friendly, smiling tree spirit. A different, worried-looking tree spirit offers to teach Cede a magic trick to erase his tracks and lose anyone following him. Cede looks up with curiosity, asking if such a trick really exists. Ariel demonstrates by drawing a spell on the ground, explaining how wind erases sound and earth erases traces. She activates the spell as a focused Cede watches her technique. Cede mimics her gesture, attempting to cast the spell himself. A complex series of magical sigils appear before him as he successfully casts the spell. The tree spirit stares in shock at Cede's immediate mastery of the magic. The tree wobbles excitedly as Cede laughs, confident that no one can find him now. He beams with delight, realizing he can now use this magic to sneak around his house unseen. Ariel hands Cede a book, telling him to study hard even when he can't visit, and he eagerly agrees. In a fond memory, the two are shown studying together, their time in the forest a well-kept secret between them. In a warm flashback, a young, smiling Cede reads a book with a content Ariel in a sunlit library. He recalls them dancing happily, narrating that in winter they would fill a room with tangerines to eat together. He remembers that in spring they used magic to ripen strawberries for harvesting. In the summers, they would cool off from the heat, sometimes using magic. He fondly narrates that this is how they spent their time, going through the seasons together in the forest home. As day turns to a starlit night, the scene settles on the glowing, dormant magic circle in the woods. The tree monster stands over the circle, impatiently asking Cede what he's waiting for. Ariel appears in the moonlit forest, observing the tree monster from a distance. Ariel sternly warns the tree not to get attached, explaining Cede is from the outside world and his time with them is fleeting compared to their long lives. Looking down, she reflects that he is just a brief encounter, but pauses thoughtfully. The memory shifts to a happy younger Cede running through the forest, waving and calling Ariel's name. Ariel turns, a gentle look on her face as she sees him approaching. A smiling Cede thinks that even if their time is short, he still cherishes it. The scene transitions to a beautiful sunny day overlooking their peaceful house in the woods. Time has passed, and a now older Cede is shown putting on a white shirt in his room. He calls out Ariel's name, startling her as she reads a book in the library. She looks up from her book, her expression surprised and alert. Ariel looks at him, flustered and speechless. Narration explains that while it felt like a fleeting moment to her, the world kept turning and the child grew up. Ariel stares at the transformed Cede, her golden eyes filled with a serious, unreadable emotion. Cede shows Ariel a room he found, while she wonders if the clothes inside were hers from when she was little. An illustration contrasts the small boy Cede was with the tall young man he has become. Cede smiles, proudly stating that he is now 15 years old. Ariel repeats his age to herself, a look of dawning realization on her face. Cede stands before her, noting he's nearly her height, though his feet tremble with nervousness. Ariel looks at him with a complicated and somewhat troubled expression. Cede turns away shyly, asking if his nervousness was that obvious. He stands pensively by the window, surrounded by white flowers. Later, he sits and reads a book, his expression calm and focused. Ariel has a shocking realization. He doesn't seem to be affected at all by the slow-flowing time of the forest. Her expression hardens as she processes this dangerous new information. Ariel stands alone in the moonlit forest, contemplating the magic circle on the ground. With a grave look, she ponders the implications of Cede's rapid growth. Overwhelmed, she collapses onto the magic circle, burying her face in her hands. The tree monster appears beside her, looking on with concern. Leaning against the tree for support, a distraught Ariel asks what she should do. She confirms her fear aloud, stating that Cede is completely unaffected by the forest's time-altering magic. The narration affirms that Sidi wasn't bound by the forest's time, showing him standing amidst golden clocks. A golden clock face reveals the truth. Sidi's magic is greater than the magic she used to seal the forest. Ariel worries that while he's still young, when he's older and can use his full power, she realizes with dread that the forest's seal will be devoured by Sidi's overwhelming magic. As the seal breaks, a dimensional gate will tear open. A painful memory surfaces of her weeping on a battlefield of swords, fearing it will happen all over again. The memory ends with her lying defeated and unconscious on the desolate ground. In the present, she resolves that it must not happen again and wonders what she can possibly do. Her face sets with grim determination as she makes a decision. From off-panel, Sidi's voice asks what's wrong as the runes of the magic circle glow faintly. An older, elegantly dressed Sidi stands on the magic circle, confused as to why it isn't working. Sidi glares with steely determination, a faint magical glow on his shoulder. Standing on the magic circle, he realizes his attempt to connect failed, stating simply, "No." He deduces that while magic is being transmitted, the circle isn't working because the flow is blocked somewhere. With the magic circle itself appearing intact, he concludes the problem must lie elsewhere. The scene shifts to Ariel's house as he realizes the issue is with the forest magic itself. He frantically touches the ground, demanding to know what's going on. Kneeling on the circle, he desperately calls out to Ariel, asking what's wrong. His thoughts race as he wonders what happened to the circle, screaming her name into the unresponsive forest. In the moonlit woods, Ariel's voice echoes that she lacks the power to completely close the magic circle. From the other side, Sidi's disembodied voice urgently pleads for Ariel to open the now closed circle. Ariel stands in the dark forest, noting with a grave expression that she can still hear his voice. She turns to the now glowing tree monster standing beside her. She reassures the tree monster, accepting that Sidi's departure was inevitable, just sooner than she expected. A creak sounds as Ariel enters her quiet, sunlit study. She sadly wonders if she's upset because she believes Sidi won't ever return. She tries to convince herself that their time together was just a brief moment of normalcy that she can forget. With a thud, she places her hands on her desk, resolving to put away the books and try to cheer up. Looking at two place settings on the dining table, she decides she'll only need to set out her own utensils now. She enters a messy room and is annoyed to find clothes strewn everywhere, noting it looks like he just took them off. Picking up the discarded clothes, she realizes with a jolt that Sidi took out all of Daniel's clothes. Her expression softens into one of quiet melancholy as she holds the clothing. She finds a strand of Sidi's hair and gently holds it, remarking on its pretty golden color. The stray golden hairs sparkle on the rug, a final trace of his presence. She humorously imagines he was like a puppy who shed his fur all over her house. Ah! The realization hits her with comical frustration. He's marked her house like it's his territory. Holding a broom, she resolves to clean up and erase every trace of him. Leaning on the broom, she reassures herself that Sidi will give up soon and that everything will be okay. She continues to rationalize that as a child, he will quickly get bored and forget all about her. Despite her resolve, she clutches the broom tightly, her face filled with inner conflict and pain. Leaning against a wall, she suddenly feels a wave of dizziness overcome her. She then remembers that she doesn't actually need to clean, as the entire house is under a cleaning spell. With a sense of resignation, she turns and walks away from the mess. Lying down to sleep, she hopes that the years it will take for her to wake will be enough for Sidi to give up. As she drifts into slumber, she faintly hears his voice calling her name, believing it will soon fade away forever. The scene shifts to a large mansion on a dark, rainy night. Sidi stands alone in the pouring rain, repeatedly calling Ariel's name. He kneels in despair on the magic circle, his calls for Ariel echoing in the rain-soaked garden. At the palace, three maids gossip, wondering if the rumor that Prince Cedric has gone crazy is true. They discuss how he never leaves the palace's corner garden, the one with the mysterious magic circle. As Sidi remains by the circle, the maids' voices narrate that he spends all his time there, desperately calling for someone. Exhausted and heartbroken, CD lies on the ground, whispering Ariel's name one last time. The maids are suddenly startled by a sound behind them. They nervously watch as CD walks down the path towards them, dragging his coat behind him. His piercing blue eyes are filled with an unyielding and solemn resolve. Looking at the grand palace, CD reaffirms his goal. He must find a way back to the forest where Ariel is. A gloved hand suddenly grasps his shoulder, stopping him in his tracks. A man with long white hair and glasses smirks, getting CD's attention with a simple, "Excuse me." The man pulls CD into a disarming embrace, pleasantly asking if he is well. CD's face darkens with anger as he glares at the man and coldly demands, "Let go!" He forcefully shoves the man's hand away, taking a step back. The man with long white hair watches CD walk away with a look of concern. Looking downcast, the white-haired man observes that CD's condition is getting worse. Inside a library, a book is slammed shut in frustration as a voice declares this isn't the right one. CD pores over a book, his thoughts connecting the dots between the monster forest, a witch, and a time curse. Slam! He pounds his fist on the desk, shouting, "No!" in frustration. Remembering Ariel's house, he despairs, realizing there's little information about the forest and no way to enter without the magic circle. His determined eyes scan the room, which is now littered with open books from his frantic research. The scene shifts to a memory as a younger CD wonders about a stack of books. A woman with long black hair hands him the books, warning him that they are precious and to take care of them. CD questions why she's giving them all at once, noting the books contain a lot of information about magic circles. The woman tells him it's homework, instructing him to memorize the magic circles as she'll be busy. The memory fades to a desk covered in intricate diagrams of magic circles. In the present, an older CD leans over the same desk, overwhelmed by his fruitless search, with a sudden, terrible realization. He understands that Ariel had been planning to leave him all along. His anger explodes as he concludes she purposely blocked the magic circle to prevent him from ever returning to her. He furiously crumples a sheet of paper containing a magic circle diagram in his hand. Looking down at the crumpled paper, he wonders if she really thinks he won't find another way. He stands over his cluttered desk, trying to figure out how to get to the forest without a magic circle, determined to find a way. As the magic diagrams glow with an ethereal blue light, his resolve hardens. He must find a way back to the forest. The study is bathed in the cool blue moonlight filtering through the large window. Exhausted from his relentless research, CD has finally fallen asleep at his desk. He sleeps peacefully, his head resting on his arm amidst the scattered papers. Two maids stand outside his door, deciding to enter and clean after noticing the silence from within. They quietly enter the study and find CD asleep, surrounded by books and papers. The maid with pink hair reaches for a book on his desk. "Ah!" CD's hand darts out and grabs her wrist, waking instantly. His eyes glowing with an intense blue light, he coldly warns her, "Don't touch what is mine." As the maid screams in terror, he threatens to cut her hand off if she doesn't leave immediately. Slam! The maids retreat hastily, shutting the door behind them. The maids tremble outside the door, recounting how scary he was. One recalls the rumor that he cut a servant's wrist when he was younger. Alone in his study, CD stands silently as he recalls the truth of that rumor. He gently picks up a book, recognizing it as a gift from Ariel, one of her last lingering traces. Clutching the book to his chest, he asks with heartbreaking sorrow why she abandoned and betrayed him. A bloody vision flashes through his mind as he vows to find and kill her, but he immediately rejects the thought. His dark thoughts shift to a new plan. He will lock her up so she can never escape. He imagines her trapped in a web of chains, unable to leave, where only he can reach her. He shakes his head violently, snapping out of his disturbing fantasy. Standing up, he looks out into a grand, ornate hallway. The scene returns to CD standing alone on the dormant magic circle in a sun-dappled forest. He despairs, wondering how he can possibly reach his goal when he has no power or money. He clenches his fist, realizing with grim determination that he must become strong. Under an ominous, blood-red moon, he vows to gain the power to do whatever he wants. As he stands resolute in the forest clearing, someone quietly approaches from behind him. Seedy turns around, warily asking the unseen person who they are. The man with long white hair and glasses appears, a knowing smirk on his face. The man confirms Seedy's desire to reach the eastern monster forest, stunning him with the knowledge. Explaining that he's been watching, the man notes the magic circle no longer works, while Seedy wonders about his motives. The man acknowledges that the magic is blocked, but pointedly asks if Seedy still wishes to go to the forest. Seedy's hope flares as he desperately asks if the man knows a way to get there without using the circle. The man explains that the forest is guarded by monsters, and the only way in is to overwhelm them with an army of knights and soldiers. Seedy lets out a single, sharp laugh, his expression hardening with a cynical smirk. He confronts the man with the long white hair, incredulously asking how he's supposed to send an entire army of knights. The man calmly addresses Seedy with his formal title, Your Highness. He then reveals the ultimate requirement for Seedy to command such power. He must become the emperor. As Chapter 12 begins, a royal decree announces the search for an heir apparent following the crown prince's death. The camera focuses on the grand, empty emperor's throne, waiting for its next occupant. The narration reveals the second prince is the current frontrunner, enjoying the full support of the knights. The scene shifts to a grand, white temple, where a lone figure in pink stands at the top of the stairs. Next, the fourth child is introduced, a portly boy, backed by the aristocracy and his powerful grandfather. Seedy bursts into cynical laughter at the seemingly impossible suggestion. He questions how he, the son of a maid from a fallen family, could ever compete to become emperor. The white-haired man reveals Seedy's trump card. He can wield ancient magic that modern wizards can no longer use. Seedy pauses, his expression showing that he's beginning to understand. The man explains the empire's power structure, noting influential families who have yet to choose a successor. Listening intently, Seedy's face sets with grim determination. The white-haired man states his own motivation for helping: the forest. He bows formally, asking to be allowed to accompany Seedy on his journey to the forest. In the moonlit woods, he explains that the truth of an ancient, world-destroying war is hidden there. He declares his desire to enter the forest and uncover the truth that has been lost to the world. Seedy looks at him skeptically, questioning his use of the word "we." The man introduces himself as Ansel Price, a second-class officer of the Truth Seekers. Ansel looks down at Seedy and formally pledges to become His Highness's strength. Seedy stands silently, contemplating the unexpected and powerful offer. A pact is formed as Seedy's hand meets Ansel's in a symbolic gesture of alliance. Ansel smiles warmly, vowing to protect Seedy to the very end. Seedy's eyes burn with a renewed, unyielding resolve. Ansel outlines his plan. They will use Seedy's magic to gain the support of the wizards and magical engineers. The next step, he continues, is to win the loyalty of the knights. Seedy envisions his path to power, defeating his enemies and forcing the nobles into obedience in a bloody conquest. Ansel declares that Seedy will then sit on the throne, and Seedy gravely promises to do his best. In a grand hall, Ansel waits patiently for the newly crowned emperor. Ansel approaches, smirking as he confirms that all the preparations have been made as ordered. Now dressed in ornate royal attire, Seedy gives the command to proceed. His goal is finally within reach, returning to the forest where Ariel is. The scene shifts to the sunlit woods surrounding Ariel's cozy cottage. A jolt. Ariel suddenly sits up in bed, awake after a long slumber. With a hand to her head, she groggily wonders just how long she was asleep. She gets out of bed and opens her bedroom door, stepping back into her quiet life. She walks through her sun-drenched study, everything just as she left it. A moment of peace passes as she observes her empty, silent dining room. Looking around the spotless house, she notes that the cleaning spell has kept everything tidy in her absence. Outside, she checks the magic circle, confirming that the seal is still intact and blocked. With a sense of finality, she turns her back on the circle. She greets the tree monster, asking if it's been taking good care of the forest, though it seems sad to see her. Reassuring the creature, she remarks that her long sleep seems to have dulled her emotions. A brief memory of CD studying surfaces as she realizes her heartbreak has faded. After all this time, she realizes with a quiet finality that she can no longer hear his voice calling for her. She fondly remembers him as a child, her student with golden hair, smiling like a happy puppy. Shaking off the memory, she hopes that CD, now an adult, has left home and is putting his magic to good use. With a faint, bittersweet smile, she accepts that things are finally back to the way they were before. Ariel stands in the sunlit woods, finally enjoying the quiet peace she longed for in her isolated forest home. Her moment of peace is shattered as she looks up, sensing a sudden disturbance. Standing up, she looks around the forest floor, wondering if she's just seeing shadows. Suddenly, streaks of fire tear across the sky. She looks up in bewilderment as the fiery objects multiply, raining down from above. Staring in horror at the sky, she realizes it's a meteor storm. An explosion erupts nearby, throwing her off her feet as the forest is engulfed in flames. As the forest burns around her, she frantically wonders why meteors are suddenly falling. Peering through the flames, she's shocked to see a figure standing in the inferno. She realizes with dread that another wizard is present in her woods. Her mind races with the terrifying conclusion: an incredibly powerful wizard is on the other side. She questions why a grand wizard capable of such destructive magic would attack her peaceful forest. Watching with alarm, she sees the wizard's hand crackle with immense magical energy. With a defiant cry, she commands the forest to block the attack, raising a wall of massive roots. The wizard's powerful magic sets her defensive barrier ablaze. A monstrous tree guardian rises from the earth to defend its home. Ariel takes cover behind the tangled wall of roots. Realizing she's outmatched, she decides to flee to buy herself some time. The golden-haired wizard unleashes a devastating spell. Thunderstorm. A bolt of violet lightning strikes Ariel down, overwhelming her defenses. She lies still and defeated on the scorched earth. Her hand twitches as she slowly regains consciousness. She groans, struggling with the pain from the attack. She forces herself to move, her mind fixed on one thought. She has to run away. A pair of elegant boots suddenly appears before her, blocking her path. The golden-haired wizard looks down at her, calmly asking if she's okay. He stands over her with an imposing air, the burning forest his backdrop. Ariel looks up, her eyes wide with shock and fear. She observes his confident, arrogant expression and wonders why such a powerful man would attack her forest. The man leans down, getting closer to her. He gently takes her chin, forcing her to look at him. Looking into her eyes amidst the flames, he makes an unbelievable proposal. "Marry me." He repeats his demand with unnerving calm. "Marry me, Ariel." Ariel stares at him, utterly stunned by his words. Her mind flashes to a memory of a sweet little boy as she questions if this is a declaration of war. She can't believe it, he's proposing after launching a full-scale attack on her home. Still dazed, she begins to process what is happening. She takes in his features: blonde hair, blue eyes, and a handsome face, and a faint memory stirs. She remembers the little boy she once knew, imagining what he would be like if he grew up. Looking at the determined face of the man before her, the pieces start to click into place. A shocking realization dawns on her as she whispers, "Maybe." "No way." He kneels beside her, telling her it's been 10 years and that he's missed her terribly. Finally recognizing him, she gasps his name in disbelief. "CD?" CD smiles warmly and confirms his identity, cheerfully admitting he blew away the forest just to see her again. She is thrown into a state of extreme confusion by his shocking confession. Looking at the ruins, she wonders if this pile of ashes is his wedding gift. CD changes the subject, asking if the magic circle is still there. His question catches her completely off guard. Before she can answer, he suddenly sweeps her into his arms. She struggles against his hold, demanding that he put her down. Sadie smiles, saying he knew he wanted to do this upon seeing her again, as Ariel incredulously questions his 10-year-old wish. In a comical flashback, Ariel angrily struggles to escape a younger Sadie's determined hug, demanding he let her go. Back in the present, Sadie confidently leads Ariel by the hand, suggesting they head to the magic circle. Ariel looks on with a grim expression, her golden eyes glowing with unease. A floral motif marks the passage of time as the narration states that 10 years have passed. Sadie looks at her with a gentle smile, thinking to himself that she has grown so much. A memory surfaces of a younger Sadie with Ariel, who recalls that he was just a boy back then. Sadie leads her to the center of the large, intricate magic circle on the scorched forest floor. He reveals that she was the one who blocked the circle's magic with a seal. Kicking one of the glowing markers, he explains that her seal is why the circle never worked for him. Holding a glowing crystal, Sadie asks Ariel for her opinion on whether the circle will work again. Ariel stares at him with glowing intensity, cutting straight to the point. "What do you want?" With a confident smirk, Sadie pulls her close, leaving her looking up at him, flustered. Ariel averts her gaze, contemplating her response as she begins to state her opinion. Sadie's expression turns cold as he internally scoffs at the idea of listening to her, while Ariel realizes his smile is twisted, not happy. A comedic effect shows fierce wind and snow raging behind a stoic Sadie, baffling Ariel. Ariel turns away with a look of grim acceptance. She worries about her home, remembering the monsters will reawaken and that all her research remains there. A silhouetted figure stands amidst a fiery vortex. As narration reveals, it is their first time outside the forest since the Great War. Ariel's thoughts race with concern for the seal on the forest. She continues to worry about the other dimension, visualized as a swirling cosmic vortex. Sadie commands the captain to return to the palace with him and Ariel, ordering the army to retrieve her luggage, and the knight obeys, Your Majesty. Ariel is stunned by the knight's title for Sadie, her mind reeling as the magic circle activates with a flash of light. The teleportation spell lifts them from the forest, giving them a view of a sprawling estate. A brilliant flash of golden energy consumes the scene as they are transported away. They reappear on a stone path, now accompanied by the captain of the knights. Ariel looks around in utter shock, trying to process her new surroundings. As they walk down a path lined with bowing servants, a stunned Ariel asks where they are. The white-haired Ansel greets them, addressing Sadie as Your Majesty, and stating he was expecting their arrival. Ansel smiles pleasantly, asking if they had a smooth trip. Sadie coolly announces their destination, the palace. Sadie confirms with Ansel that all preparations are complete and ready for immediate use. Walking beside him, Ariel quietly questions the use of the title, Your Majesty. Her eyes widen as the unbelievable truth dawns on her. Did you become the Emperor? Remembering a cheerful younger Sadie, Ariel can't believe he's treating his ascension to the throne so casually, as if he'd won the lottery. She presses him for details, recalling he was just a rich kid and asking if he was secretly a prince. With a serious expression, Sadie listens as she demands to know how he became Emperor. Sadie dismisses her frantic questions with a calm smile, suggesting they can discuss the long story later. He reassures her that they have plenty of time left together. A close-up on Sadie's determined blue eyes reveals his unwavering resolve. The scene transitions with a detailed shot of the ornate braiding on Sadie's royal uniform. Standing before a magnificent palace, Sadie declares it their new home, where they will spend a long time together. Ariel looks at him with suspicion and asks exactly how long he expects her to stay with him. Sadie leans in, startling Ariel with his sudden proximity. He looks down at her with an intense and possessive gaze. A sly smirk crosses Ariel's face as she realizes his entire campaign becoming emperor. Invading her home was all for her. Her cynical thoughts are punctuated by one glaring fact. He burned down her entire forest. Sadie proudly declares that as emperor he will make Ariel his empress, shocking Ansel in the background. Ariel is rendered utterly speechless by his proclamation. Her shock gives way to pure outrage as she internally screams about the absurdity of the situation in a country she doesn't even recognize. Sadie cheerfully points out that with her forest home gone, Ariel has nowhere else to go, but she angrily retorts that making someone homeless is a terrible marriage proposal. In a grand palace hallway, CD gestures toward a set of ornate golden doors, announcing that this is Ariel's room. With a proud smile, CD informs Ariel that he decorated the room himself and is certain she will love it. His expression softens as he looks down at her, gently telling her to rest for now. Startled by his sudden departure, Ariel calls out for him to wait a minute. A sound from the door startles her, and she looks back in confusion. Standing before the massive red doors, Ariel panics as she hears them clack shut and lock. A baffled chibi Ariel wonders if CD actually just locked her in. The dawning horror sets in as she wonders aloud if she is now trapped and caged in this room. Looking around the luxurious but unsettling space, she questions the decor, noting that everything in the room is red. A tour of the room reveals an overwhelming crimson theme, from the bed and furniture to the wallpaper and a carpet so deeply red it looks like dripping blood. Feeling overwhelmed, Ariel thinks she's going crazy and wonders if this obsessive room is his revenge for her leaving him 10 years ago. She questions if this intensely bright red room isn't a bit excessive, even for revenge. A downtrodden Ariel notes that her dress, despite its cleanliness spell, is too tattered to be repaired. With a sigh of resignation, she flops onto the bed, giving up for the moment. Lying back and staring at the ceiling, she tries to process the bizarre turn of events. In a flashback to Seti's youth, Ariel's thoughts rationalize that since he was a prince, he couldn't have told a stranger like her his true identity. Another memory shows young CD proudly presenting a book to her. Back in the present, a fuming chibi Ariel calls him ungrateful, a man who repays kindness with betrayal. She sits up in a huff, shouting that this is precisely why people warn against taking in black-haired beasts. Pausing, she remembers CD is blonde and corrects herself, realizing the saying referred to not taking in just anyone, regardless of their hair color. Gazing across the opulent, empty room, she reflects that even the, quote, yellow-haired beast wasn't truly taken in. She collapses back onto the pillow, hating the feeling of utter exhaustion. As she drifts off, she senses that her mental fatigue will only lead to nightmares. Her dream transports her to a desolate battlefield littered with countless swords under a dark, starry sky. She stands alone amid the carnage, her expression grim as she confirms there is no one left. Looking around the grim landscape, she desperately tries to convince herself that they must still be alive somewhere. A close-up captures her anguished expression as she grapples with the devastating scene. As she walks through the wreckage, ghostly apparitions rise, questioning why she let this happen. Her face fills with pain as spectral hands reach for her from the ground, their voices whispering that it's all her fault. Overwhelmed with guilt, she covers her mouth in horror, stammering in denial. Her eyes widen as a sudden realization strikes her. She looks down in shock, spotting a lone figure lying motionless on the cracked earth. It's a man with dark hair, lying dead on the battlefield. A desperate no escapes her lips as she rushes toward the fallen man. She cradles the man's head, her voice trembling as she whispers the end of a name, IEL. Clinging to him, her face is a mask of pure, heartbreaking grief. Lost in despair, she wonders what she can possibly do now that she has nothing left, having lost everything. Ariel's eyes fly open in her bed, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. She sits up wearily, hand pressed to her forehead, relieved that it was only a dream. Glancing around the suffocatingly red room, she realizes its oppressive atmosphere is what caused her nightmare. CD suddenly appears at her bedside, gripping her arm and demanding to know who Daniel is, causing her to scream in shock. Startled, she tumbles off the bed as CD quickly warns her to be careful. He catches her gracefully, the moment suspended in a shower of romantic light and rose petals. Holding her securely, CD gazes down at her, their faces intimately close. His expression is serious as he asks her if she is all right. Still flustered, Ariel looks away and confirms that she thinks she's okay. CD presses her for an answer about Daniel, but she pushes back, telling him to get away and insisting it's no one he knows. As she struggles against his grip, she's stunned by his physical power, wondering when he became so strong. Ariel awakens in a lavish red room, looking bewildered and asking what's happening. In a moment of panic, she wonders about the sudden, intense atmosphere. A handsome, blonde-haired man with piercing blue eyes looks down with a grim expression. In a flashback, a younger version of him clings to a flustered chibi Ariel. Back in the present, he gently guides Ariel to a seat, telling her not to exert herself. He gazes at her with a somber intensity. Sitting opposite her, the blonde-haired man calmly states that he is willing to wait until she is ready to tell him everything. He gently suggests she must have been exhausted to the point of having nightmares. Ariel retorts that she can't have good dreams while locked in a crazy room and questions why he is asking about it now. She furiously accuses him of decorating the room this way for revenge, asking if he wants to drive her mad. Gesturing wildly, she screams that the entire room is an overwhelming, blinding red. A flashback shows a young, cheerful boy telling a confused chibi Ariel his only goal was to make her happy. The blonde-haired man explains that since Ariel likes red, he innocently wanted to give her a room filled with her favorite color. The memory shifts to a younger Ariel and the boy in a field of red flowers as he notes how much red there is. The young boy points out her red clothes and sweetly asks if she likes the color. Smiling brightly, a young Ariel confirms that red is her favorite color because it's pretty. In the present, Ariel is stunned into silence, realizing the room's decor is based on that single long-ago conversation. She jolts to her feet, staring at the blonde-haired man. Trembling slightly, she struggles to find the words to respond to his gesture. In another flashback, the white-haired man, Seedy, stands by a door and calmly agrees with an unseen person. The young blonde prince excitedly demands that everything in a room be made red for the person he will marry, while Seedy wryly asks if he is imprisoning a dragon. Overwhelmed, Ariel stands alone in the opulent, intensely red room. She realizes the room was not meant for revenge, but was a sincere, if misguided, attempt to show he cared. As this new understanding sinks in, she looks down in deep thought. Despite his good intentions, an angry chibi Ariel concludes the room looks like absolute crap. Ariel shouts through the door, demanding the room be made normal immediately. The blonde-haired man admits he does not know her likes and dislikes, to which she retorts that is precisely the problem. He offers to change the room, and she demands he also remove the lock on the door. He explains the lock is for safety, but she slyly questions whose safety it protects if it locks from the outside. Swoosh! He gently places his hand on her head. He tells her to wash up and eat while he has the room changed. As he walks away, she touches her hair, surprised, and privately notes that the little guy has gotten taller. Two maids in blue uniforms curtsy in a grand hallway, addressing him as, "Your Majesty." A voice beckons Ariel, offering to take her to the bathroom. As she's led away, Ariel regrets not demanding to be sent back to the forest, as the Emperor laughs with Seedy in the background. The Emperor smirks, remarking that she still forgets things when she gets distracted. He tells Seedy she dislikes the room's excessive red, and Seedy promises to clean it up immediately. The two maids wait for Ariel in the hallway. A blonde-haired maid scoffs, questioning who the ill-mannered woman is. Her companion warns her to watch her mouth, reminding her that His Majesty intends to make Ariel the Empress, which the blonde maid dismisses as nonsense. The blonde maid lists the proper candidates for Empress, dismissing Ariel as an unknown. The other maid wisely declares she's staying out of the palace politics. She sternly warns her colleague to be careful, as she doesn't wish to die by His Majesty's hand. Ugh, the blonde maid scoffs. The cautious maid tells her to worry about the VIP's clothes while she worries about her own expression. Left alone, the blonde maid glares after her colleague, muttering, "Coward." The scene returns to Ariel's room, now a more tasteful red, as she reflects that she first thought she saw a ghost. Lying on a chaise lounge after eating, Ariel feels a little dizzy. She gazes around at her gilded prison, fully comprehending she is in the imperial palace. She contemplates how to escape and return to the forest, wondering if she'll ever even leave the room. Her golden eyes narrow with steely determination. Ariel's thoughts reveal her discomfort as she feels Sidi constantly monitoring her. Sidi, the golden-haired emperor, sits regally on his throne with a confident and composed posture. Ariel looks away with unease, admitting to herself that she can't get used to this new reality. She asks Sidi when he grew so big, wistfully recalling when he was a small and pretty boy. A chibi Sidi accuses Ariel of abandoning him after he grew up, while a flustered Ariel denies his manipulative claim. With his arms crossed, Sidi continues to guilt her, claiming she abandoned him when he grew to her height. Ariel clarifies that she left for another reason, shouting that his overwhelming magic power was the real problem. Ugh. Sidi puts his head in his hand, feigning despair at her words. Baffled by the turn in conversation, Ariel stammers, trying to explain herself. She internally sees through his act, realizing he's just trying to appear pitiful. A cute, chibi version of Ariel admits that even though she knows he's acting, she can't help but feel for him. Her thoughts betray her weakness for him as she laments how his beauty makes it impossible to leave him alone. Sidi continues his sorrowful performance, slumping over in his chair. Seeing a single tear fall from his eye, Ariel panics, wondering how she can possibly comfort him. His act falters as he subtly touches his chin, his expression shifting from sadness to calculation. Noticing the change, Ariel looks at him with suspicion and asks what he's thinking. Her suspicion turns to shock as she repeats her question, sensing a darker motive. With a chillingly calm expression, Sidi contemplates getting rid of all younger children to ensure Ariel's attention is solely on him. Horrified by his possessive threat, Ariel is momentarily speechless before he asks if she'll finally look only at him. She grabs his hands, pleading with him to leave the children alone and promising she won't abandon him again. He pulls her close, silencing her with a gentle kiss on the forehead. Pulling back with a smile, he declares their conversation over for the day, leaving a stunned Ariel blushing. As he prepares to leave, he tells her he'll wait to stay the night and will see her tomorrow. Ariel yells in frustration as the doors close, leaving Sidi standing impassively outside. A close-up reveals Sidi's cold, unwavering gaze, filled with possessive intent. He turns and walks away from her room, his expression resolute. As he leaves, a glowing golden seal activates, magically locking the doors. Sidi smirks, confident that Ariel didn't notice the sealing spell he placed on her room. From above, Sidi is shown leaving the sealed room as his two attendants bow respectfully. Flanked by Ansel and his knight captain, Sidi walks away with grim determination. In the gilded hallway, his thoughts confirm his plan, to hold her so tightly that she never thinks of escaping. Alone in her room, a clueless Ariel thinks to herself that Sidi is overreacting. She sits by a table, feeling strangely uneasy without knowing she's now a prisoner. A flashback shows a younger Sidi in the forest's magic circle, vowing he will never let her go again. In the present, a powerful Sidi strides through the palace halls, his attendants following closely. Ariel is depicted as a bird trapped in a golden cage, symbolizing her gilded imprisonment. Sidi's determined face is shown, his cold eyes fixed on his goal. Over a dark and thorny backdrop, his voice declares that he has no intention of ever letting her go. The sinister imagery continues as he vows that even in death she will not leave his side. The scene shifts to the eerie monster forest, now swirling with ominous purple magic. Two cloaked researchers exploring the woods spot something unusual in the distance. A group of robed figures stares up in awe at a massive, pulsing red seal woven from dark roots and ancient runes. The mages stand before the sinister magical construct, enveloped in its ominous red glow. One of them warns that the seal is far beyond their power and that touching it could have catastrophic consequences. Recognizing the danger, they decide they must report their discovery to His Majesty immediately. In a lavish office, Ansel stands before Sidi, who is busy at his desk. Ansel reports that the seal bears traces of Archmage Ashild, but the investigation is stalled as no one can break it. Sidi looks up from his work, his expression serious as he considers this new information. The massive, swirling red and blue magical vortex is described as a very ominous hole, Meanwhile, back in her room, Ariel tries on a new dress, pleased that the temporary clothes Sadie provided fit her well. A blonde-haired woman in a formal blue dress, flanked by two maids, explains that Ariel can ask her or the staff for anything she needs. One of the maids holds a large ornate book with an illustration of a palace on its cover. The scene shifts to a moonlit view of a grand palace balcony. Alone in the opulent room, Ariel sits with the book and wonders if it only allows travel to the places pictured inside. In another location, a pensive Sadie sits on a grand chair, concluding that is likely not the case. Ariel opens the book to examine its contents more closely. Her golden eyes narrow with focus as she inspects the book's pages. A large question mark appears as she stares at the pages in confusion. A narration explains that to Ariel, the text is just meaningless scribbles next to the illustrations. She inwardly screams in frustration that she can't understand any of it. Staring intently, she realizes there are new letters mixed in with the familiar ones. A montage of runes explains that as civilizations changed over time, new letters emerged. In a flashback, Ariel realizes that young Sadie couldn't read her book because its letters were ancient and long forgotten. Back in the present, she reasons that even a royal prince wouldn't have known the ancient Arundel language at such a young age. Her eyes widen in comical shock as a sudden, terrible realization dawns on her. Book in hand, she bursts out of the room, calling for the attendant. The blonde-haired woman turns, coolly asking what the matter is. Ariel hesitates with a nervous smile, unsure of what to say. She internally debates her words, realizing it would sound strange to claim she knows other letters but not the current ones. The blonde woman looks skeptically at a framed piece of calligraphy on the wall. Ariel quickly approaches her, pointing toward the framed script. The woman panics, warning Ariel not to touch the precious artifact and questioning her recklessness. Ariel gazes at her with a stern, unreadable expression. Still holding her book, Ariel listens as the woman calls the framed script precious. The woman explains that it is the original handwriting of Ishilde, the legendary archmage of the ancient magic kingdom from 1,000 years ago. She declares it's a precious relic and national treasure, leaving Ariel stunned and surrounded by comical cat doodles. A shocked Ariel thinks to herself, has it been 1,000 years? She is completely bewildered by the terms precious, artistic wit, and relic. Her mind recoils from the framed text, seeing it as nothing more than a dark, cursed object. With a forced smile, Ariel tries to dismiss the situation, assuring the woman that it's nothing important. In a powerful internal reveal, Ariel clenches her fist, confessing she is Archmage Ishilde and only wrote that because she was bored during magic class. Mortified, she wonders how to handle this mess, realizing her idol's scribbles are being treated as a relic. The woman scolds her for her lack of palace etiquette, causing Ariel to flinch. Ariel stands silently as the woman continues her lecture. The blonde woman's eyes narrow as she feels a wave of hostility from Ariel. Ariel finally speaks, pointing out that it is improper for a maid to scream at an imperial guest. The woman retorts that it's a precious relic, chiding Ariel for her ignorance. Startled by Ariel's comeback, the blonde woman gasps. Ariel's gaze turns sharp as she icily reminds the woman about imperial courtesy. The woman stammers, thrown off by the sudden and intense change in atmosphere. The woman is stunned by Ariel's dignified and arrogant aura, wondering how a mere country girl can be so intimidating. Ariel's noble expression unnerves the woman, who questions her elegance and nobility. With a cold stare, Ariel asks why the woman is still standing there. The blonde woman immediately drops into a deep, panicked bow, begging for forgiveness without fully understanding why. Ariel places a hand on the bowing woman's head, asserting her dominance. She calmly states that, as the emperor's guest, she cannot believe she was ignored and shouted at. Her words stun the other maids as she questions if being looked down upon by staff is the standard of the imperial palace. A desperate apology echoes through the grand hall. Ariel's golden eyes hold a cold, unwavering authority. Her thoughts are clear. To ignore her, the emperor's guest, is to ignore Sadie, the emperor himself. A flashback shows a young, bruised, and disheveled Sadie, recalling a time when he was weak, ignored, and beaten by his siblings. In the present, the now Emperor CD stands proudly before his palace, thinking things should be different. But a glimpse of Ariel reveals she is angry. Ariel observes a blonde maid bowing deeply, wondering if Sida's personality is so weak that he lets his servants disrespect him. CD makes a grand entrance flanked by two men as the terrified maid cries out, "Your Majesty." CD's piercing blue eyes fix forward with cold intensity. Ariel stares back, her expression equally determined and unyielding. He glances to the side, his jaw set in grim resolve. Swoosh! In a swift motion, CD pulls Ariel into his arms, wrapping his formal cloak around her. He holds her close, their faces inches apart as he gazes down at her with a gentle yet firm look. Brushing aside the intimate gesture, Ariel declares that the servants in the imperial palace are not up to standard. She passionately warns CD that if he doesn't command respect from his subordinates, his authority as emperor will collapse. CD's two attendants, the white-haired man and a dark-skinned man, look on in utter confusion. Ariel presses on, asking what he will do if more people begin to ignore his authority. Taken aback, CD thoughtfully questions if she's really talking about him. He stares into the distance, contemplating the idea of being seen as a powerless emperor. He turns his head with a flicker of newfound understanding in his eyes. The disrespectful blonde maid collapses to the floor, sobbing in terror as two other maids watch impassively. Seti remains silent, his expression unreadable as he processes Ariel's words. A slight smirk plays on his lips as he thinks to himself that this misunderstanding is actually beneficial. Ariel looks up at him, her golden eyes wide with surprise at his unexpected reaction. CD runs a hand through his hair, looking down with a flustered and overwhelmed expression. A cute puppy appears over Ariel's head as she's surrounded by hearts, showing how adorable he finds her concern. The two stunned attendants nervously address Ariel as the dear guest. Ariel earnestly insists that he can trust her advice, while a deeply embarrassed CD hides his face. His attendants stand like lifeless dolls, their souls seeming to leave their bodies at the bizarre scene. In a cute chibi fantasy, a flustered CD hugs Ariel, struggling to explain his reaction. Her lecture over, Ariel now studies a guidebook with a thoughtful expression. She recalls teaching a young CD how to read, realizing that he, too, was once illiterate. Showing him the guidebook, she explains she can't read the letters, and he asks what she means. CD looks down at her with an understanding and gentle smile. He teases that she, Ariel, didn't know how to read, but she quickly clarifies that she just doesn't know these specific letters. A fond memory shows a young Ariel proudly telling a beaming young CD that she knows the letters of Arundel. With a sudden shift in tone, Ariel reaches for his arm. CD's expression darkens as he grabs her wrist, his voice laced with old pain as he accuses her. "You abandoned me." His eyes narrow, filled with a chilling, intense anger. Ariel stares back, completely stunned and speechless at his sudden, harsh accusation. He gazes at her, his expression cold and unyielding. Placing a hand on her shoulder, CD smiles menacingly and tells her, "So don't learn," leaving her shocked. He gently guides the bewildered Ariel toward a set of doors, telling her to go rest. CD gives her a chillingly sweet smile, telling her to just stay put as she shouts in protest. Slam! The doors shut behind her, and she furiously pounds on them, calling him an ungrateful bastard. The grand, ornate doors are now closed, sealing her inside the room. CD stands alone in the hallway, his thoughts turning inward as he stares at the floor. He muses that Ariel has a funny misunderstanding, believing she's worried about his imperial power. He discusses the situation with his white-haired attendant, his posture now confident and composed. CD asks his attendant with a knowing smile if Ariel seemed normal to him. The narration reflects on Ariel's intimidating presence, an aura that can only belong to someone who was once in a very high position. He concludes that she must have held a much higher status than he ever imagined. Standing in a lavish hall, CD realizes that the more he discovers, the more he understands that Ariel is hiding a great deal from him. CD's expression hardens as he begins to speak. Looming over the bowing woman, Seedy coldly asks if she just insulted him. The flustered woman denies insulting Seedy, but he cuts her off, accusing her of ignoring Ariel. As the woman prostrates herself, Seedy demands to know why she mistreated his empress, and she admits her grave sin. With a terrifyingly calm expression, Seedy declares that the punishment for a grave sin is death. The scene flashes red, implying a swift and violent consequence. A sudden sound makes a white-haired imperial knight and his men turn their attention. Guards drag the screaming blonde woman away as she desperately begs for forgiveness. As the woman's pleas echo, the remaining maids watch in stunned silence, one letting out a frightened hiccup. Unmoved by the commotion, Seedy simply thinks to himself how noisy it is. Seedy decides he must re-educate all the servants, resolving to stamp out any disrespect shown towards Ariel. The scene shifts as a rumor begins to spread about the chaos at the imperial palace. Gossiping townsfolk discuss the emperor's mysterious woman, criticizing her messy appearance. The rumors intensify, painting Ariel as a dirty, ignorant commoner who somehow managed to seduce the emperor. The gossip culminates in a ridiculous rumor. The emperor must have a preference for unkempt women. Meanwhile, back in her luxurious room, the morning sun illuminates the space. A seamstress and her assistants arrive, promising to create the most fashionable dresses for Ariel. Wearing a new white dress, Ariel looks on in confusion. She stands awkwardly as they begin taking her measurements. Annoyed by the early morning fuss, she questions what is happening. Seedy calmly explains from his throne that Ariel requires a new wardrobe suitable for the palace. Ariel glares, thinking that she can't let him do this. The seamstress's assistants whisper amongst themselves, confirming Ariel is the subject of the palace gossip. The head seamstress calls for focus and invites Ariel to choose a design from a booklet. The booklet displays a drawing of an ornate and fashionable gown. The staff eagerly discusses color palettes and lace details, trying to design the perfect dress for her. Ariel watches their enthusiastic planning, still looking completely baffled. The design team pauses their work, looking up in question. From his chair, Seedy watches the scene unfold with a smug, satisfied smile. Flustered, Ariel tries to object but can't find the right words. She internally panics, begging Seedy not to interfere, terrified he'll force them to make another hideous red creation. A chibi Seedy cackles with delight at her silent frustration. Composing herself, Ariel crosses her arms and firmly tells Seedy to leave the designing to the professionals. When he tries to protest, she immediately shuts him down, ordering him to stay still. The design team watches the exchange in stunned silence. The two assistants realize the commands sound oddly familiar. They compare her commands to those used when training a dog. The realization hits them, and they cover their mouths in shocked gasps. To their horror, Ariel pats Seedy's head like a pet, calling him a good boy as he sprouts puppy ears and a wagging tail. An onlooker's thought trails off as they stare at Ariel's commanding presence. A shocked Seedy recoils as she stands over him, comically holding a leash. A new rumor spreads like wildfire. The emperor, the palace's mad dog, has finally found a trainer. Ariel spirals into panic over treating the emperor like a child. As a white-haired man bluntly points out, she treated him like a dog. Her humiliation deepens as she realizes the rumors have evolved from illiterate commoner to imperial dog trainer. Overwhelmed, Ariel comes to a firm decision. She must escape the palace at all costs. Her resolve falters as she confronts the practicalities of escaping, wondering where she could possibly go. Her panic intensifies as she remembers she is completely broke, with two guards watching her every move. With a renewed sense of purpose, she forms the first step of her plan. She approaches Seedy and declares her need to inspect the Imperial Palace's magic circle. Feigning simple curiosity, she explains she just wants to see how a magic circle outside the forest operates, knowing she can't use it herself. With a thoughtful expression, Seedy confirms her unspoken assumption. He then turns, telling Ariel that he also has something to show her. Or she. Ariel looks back at him, confused by his sudden declaration. In the next moment, she finds herself in a vibrant forest, completely shocked by the sudden change of scenery. She stands beside Sidi and two others, wondering in horror why the Imperial Palace has become a monster forest. Suddenly, a small, sentient log pops up with a start. The little log creature happily hops towards them, whistling a cheerful tune. Sidi smiles warmly, petting the creature and noting that it recognized him right away. A flashback shows a forest engulfed in flames as a voice screams for it to stop. A massive, terrifying creature made of wood and fire rises from the inferno. A small, young Sidi bravely stands before the towering wooden monster. The creature's fiery eyes widen in surprise at the sight of the boy. Back in the present, Sidi watches with a calm, knowing smile, the fiery memory behind him. The small log creature begins to cry, tears streaming from its wooden eyes. The flashback continues, showing the young Sidi embracing the crying creature. Sidi smiles as the creature hugs him, explaining they can guard the forest and the palace magic circle. Ariel scoffs at the idea, questioning the usefulness of a creature that throws thunderstorms and meteors. Sidi proudly recounts how he fought it as a child, noting its ability to heal his wounds and calling them childhood friends. Ariel stares in disbelief at this bizarre revelation. Sidi explains the creature will protect the magic circle, as hidden attendants whisper about the knights being too afraid to approach. She steps onto a glowing runic circle on the ground, identifying it as the one connected to the forest. A map confirms her location is in the territory of Old Arendelle, and she realizes she knows where she is. Ariel wonders how the circle got inside the palace, learning it was an immovable, ancient relic discovered in a field. An emperor from generations past, obsessed with magic, built the entire palace on top of the circle to house it. Sidi muses that the emperor was a magic fanatic, while Ariel privately calls him a rich one before he adds that the circle was abandoned. He recalls his childhood, when he found the magic circle and wandered into the forest. Sidi looks back with a gentle, nostalgic smile. Ariel looks on, her cheeks flushed with surprise. Realizing 1,000 years have passed outside the forest, she examines the magic circle, amazed it has survived so long. She touches the runes, impressed by its excellent condition and wondering what preservation magic was used. Suddenly, she realizes with a jolt that the powerful preservation magic wasn't cast by her. A flashback reveals a blue-haired wizard named Akelnar, an archmage who shared her laboratory. She regrets not asking Akelnar about his conservation formula, marveling at its 1,000-year potency. Her golden eyes narrow as another thought strikes her. She recalls her perpetually clean and self-repairing house, concluding it must have been under a status quo spell. This leads her to the realization that the same spell must be why she hasn't aged at all. Sidi observes her, thinking to himself that she looks exactly the same while he has grown so much older. He asks her if it's true, and a flustered Ariel quickly deflects the question. His thoughts reveal he knows the forest, filled with Ashilde's power, is a place where time has stopped. Ariel watches him with a serious expression, sensing his suspicions are close to the truth. Sidi pulls her close, confessing he long suspected she was a shield, and has been studying her ever since. He leans in closer, his words making her increasingly nervous. He explains he also studied Akelnar's relics and can now distinguish between the two archmages' magic. Sidi tells her he could feel both of their magic in the forest, leaving a blushing Ariel speechless. He then pivots, recalling that the man she lived with in the forest was named Daniel. Ariel panics, realizing Sidi has figured out she is Ashilde and that Daniel is Akelnar. Sidi looks down at her with a serious gaze, ready to reveal his conclusion. He asks for her thoughts on a certain matter, but Ariel internally screams that he's crazy and whatever he's thinking is wrong. Mortified, she wonders how a rumor started that she and Daniel were lovers. Her inner self erupts in furious denial, shouting that it's absolutely not true. Ariel remembers her past, shouting in a flashback that the man is her real brother. A man with black hair and red eyes, dressed in a regal blue cape, gives a confident smirk. The scene shifts to a grand, sunlit temple, focusing on its ornate architecture and a glowing altar within. Inside, a woman with long white hair and a delicate lace veil prays solemnly. Her prayer is interrupted as she looks up, startled by a sudden premonition. The woman stumbles as a narration begins. The oracles. Her expression hardens with resolve as she stares forward, her blue eyes filled with determination. The narration concludes that the oracle's message has cast an ominous aura over the imperial palace. Two women gossip on a balcony, questioning the ridiculous rumors about the icy emperor being with a woman. They continue their conversation, wondering if the emperor intends to make the woman his empress as the white-haired woman approaches from behind. Ah. The two gossiping women turn and gasp in shock upon seeing the white-haired woman standing before them. The narrator introduces her as Violet Kelton, a saintess who hears God's voice and is a strong candidate for empress. Violet looks on with a cool, unreadable expression. The scene returns to Ariel, as the narrator explains that something has changed in the imperial palace. A title card shows Ariel standing beside a man with dark hair and a purple tunic. In a flashback, the man in purple angrily conjures fire, threatening to roast Ariel whole. Ariel prepares a counterspell of ice, vowing to freeze his ignorant, mana-riddled head off. He unleashes hellfire, as she unleashes blizzard. A cartoonish drawing shows the man frozen in a block of ice while a fuming Ariel steams with anger. Their magical duel devolves into a physical brawl as Ariel body slams him, much to his annoyance. They grapple and pull each other's hair while arguing as onlookers cry out their names, Lady Ariel and Lord Daniel. Ack! The sounds of their childish fight echo through the hall. The two collapse to the floor, groaning in pain. An elegant woman in a brown dress appears, furiously demanding to know why they are always fighting over magic. She furiously sentences them both to the dungeon for 3 days of reflection. As they beg for forgiveness, she shouts, "Shut up!" while a narrator explains the family dynamic of fighting siblings. The flashback ends with Ariel sadly reflecting that she can no longer see her precious family. A handsome man with blonde hair and piercing blue eyes watches with a serious gaze. The blonde man confronts Ariel, asking about the relationship between Ekelnar and Ashilde, startling her. Panicked, Ariel denies knowing anything and tells him to go search the records himself. Bump! She slams a heavy door in his face, yelling for him to stop following her. Defeated, she sinks to the floor behind the door, realizing he has likely figured everything out. Outside, the blonde man waits patiently, his arms crossed with a determined look. Ariel realizes with dread that he knows Daniel is Ekelnar, and therefore knows that she is Ashilde. She laments to herself, admitting she never wanted him to find out she was Ashilde. A graphic announces that 1,000 years have passed. The narration continues, explaining that she has become a person from a millennium ago. In a panic, Ariel realizes the true reason she hid her identity. She doesn't want to be seen as a grandmother over 1,000 years old. Overwhelmed by anxiety, she feels that staying will only bring back dark memories and trauma. Looking out a window, she decides her best option is to return to the forest. However, she realizes the blonde man isn't likely to let her leave so easily. Hoping to de-escalate, she approaches the door, determined to resolve things with words. She cautiously cracks the door open to peek outside. Kya! She's shocked to find the persistent bastard standing right there, smiling as he says he was waiting for her. Gathering her courage, Ariel announces her decision to go to the forest, and he surprisingly agrees, saying he won't block her magic circle. The blonde man thoughtfully considers her request to return to the forest. He then cheerfully informs her there's no house to go back to, leaving her to question why it can't be repaired with magic. He explains with a smug grin that her house was destroyed down to the very last molecule. Ariel is left utterly speechless by this revelation. He adds that he brought back all of her belongings from the forest, and the wizards were thrilled to discover so many ancient books. Ariel's eyes widen in disbelief as a shocking thought occurs to her. She realizes with dawning horror that all the servants bustling about were moving her belongings. With a clatter, she bursts through a doorway, shouting in panicked denial. Leaning over a balcony, she despairs, thinking of her house, her books, and all her things. The lightning strike realization hits her. All of it really is hers. She watches from above as palace staff continue to transport her chests and belongings. Her panic gives way to focus as she thinks she just saw something strange among the items. A book with a familiar cover is carried past, catching her attention. Her eyes widen in sudden, complete shock. She recognizes a specific notebook with an ornate green cover. She internally screams in horrified recognition, realizing exactly what it is. Stuttering in terror, she points towards the object of her dread. Leaning over the railing, she desperately yells for Sidi to get her that notebook at once. She has a terrible vision of a wizard excitedly recognizing ancient letters in the book. An ominous premonition sends a chill down her spine. She imagines two wizards celebrating, convinced they've found a secret record detailing the relationship between the archmages Ashilda and Akelnar. Their imagined delight grows as they declare the book a priceless research journal of the two great archmages. Ariel desperately shouts from the balcony that they are completely wrong. In her mind, she wails the mortifying truth. It's just her diary. Overwhelmed by humiliation, Ariel collapses onto the railing and sobs. A thought arises that the book definitely connects the two archmages as a couple, and the thinker doesn't like it. Sidi's expression becomes grim and serious. Ariel tries to explain, insisting that he's mistaken and whatever he's imagining about her and Akelnar is wrong. Trying to de-escalate, she sweetly asks Sidi to bring her the notebook for a talk, but is interrupted by a wizard's excited cry from below. The wizard's voice echoes from the courtyard, announcing another mention of Akelnar. Trembling, Ariel realizes they found a passage where she wrote a swear word about Akelnar. She internally screams that it was a diary she wrote just to curse at her brother. Disintegrating from shame, she wonders why her teenage diary is here and begs for the humiliation to end. Sidi looks down, lost in serious thought. He silently wonders why Ariel is so desperate for the notebook and what her connection is to Ashilda. Ariel stammers nervously, trying and failing to come up with an explanation for Sidi. She falls silent, her expression tense as she realizes she's cornered. Giving up, she shouts in frustration that he must have already figured out she's Ashilda. Sidi calmly looks down and confirms that her assumption is correct. He looks up at her with a knowing, subtle smile. Ariel proudly declares her identity as Ashilda and demands he bring her belongings back from her house in the forest. Sidi observes the ecstatic wizards, thinking they'll never give up the diary willingly. She challenges his power, but he calmly smiles and assures her he has more than enough. Sidi summons the white-haired man, Ansel, ordering him to bring the diary. He issues a stern command. If the wizards refuse, all the materials they brought from the forest will be confiscated. Ansel smiles, certain the wizards would rather surrender one book than lose all their research. Now in possession of the diary, Sidi sits down and begins to read it. Ariel panics again, realizing with horror that Sidi can read the ancient language of Arundel. In a chibi fantasy, she tries to snatch the book, but he holds it out of her reach. She jumps desperately, trying to grab the diary as he holds it high above her head. Enraged, Ariel demands that he stop reading and give the book to her immediately. As he reads, his expression darkens at her threat to return to the forest if he continues. The atmosphere grows heavy and tense around his determined face. He looks up, his voice filled with hurt as he notes how easily she speaks of leaving him. His painful words leave Ariel completely stunned and speechless. Sidi stands firm, his voice low and tense as he tells Ariel he's holding a lot back right now. Ariel looks back, confused, as Sidi reflects on the 10 long years since she abandoned him. He recalls his despair while studying the magic circle, a time of shattered hopes that ended with his resolve to find the forest. Gazing out at the palace grounds, he remembers his vow for what he would do if he ever met her again. His hand gently cups her jaw, turning her face towards him. Ariel's golden eyes widen in surprise as she looks up at him, caught in his grasp. His expression turns cold as he reveals his dark initial thought. If she couldn't be his, he would get rid of her completely. Feeling the chilling shift in his demeanor, Ariel questions him with a nervous, "Sidi?" Held in his grip, she finds his sudden possessiveness strange. "Uriel." She averts her gaze, silently processing his menacing change in attitude. Looking down at her, Sidi reveals that he ultimately changed his destructive plan. His true intention surfaces in his thoughts. Instead of ending her, he decided he would catch her and lock her up. He pulls her close against a fiery backdrop, his voice intense as he confesses his desire to make her breathe only in his arms. His dark fantasy continues as he imagines hiding her away where only he could see her, leaving Ariel stunned into silence. The intense moment fades, sunlight filtering through leaves as the scene softens. With a sudden gasp, Ariel snaps back to the present, startled by his proximity. Leaning in, Sadie warns her not to provoke him, then slyly asks for a reward for being so patient. Trying to de-escalate, Ariel nervously dismisses the notebook, insisting it's just a diary. Her panicked reaction only piques his interest, and he admits he's now even more curious, much to her chibi self's horror. Sadie thoughtfully considers the diary, his expression unreadable. With a simple, "all right," he calmly sets the ancient book ablaze in his hand. As the diary turns to ash, Ariel sighs in relief while Sadie laments the fit the wizards will throw. Sadie bluntly asks if she and Akelnar were dating, prompting an infuriated Ariel to shout that Akelnar is her big brother. Sadie processes this, then bizarrely asks if she killed Akelnar, musing that's what siblings do, leaving Ariel to realize his own past must be troubled. She clarifies that everyone is still alive, but her choice of not yet makes him question if she plans to kill them later. Sadie stands back, calmly accepting that Akelnar was her older brother. He repeats his conclusion that they were siblings, and Ariel watches him, her expression guarded. A wave of relief washes over Sadie's face as he confirms they were not lovers. Confused by his sudden change in mood, Ariel questions his strange expression. Sadie smiles sweetly, admitting he was annoyed by all the mentions of Akelnar while he was trying to prove Ariel was a Shilde. He reveals a terrifying fantasy of resurrecting and repeatedly killing Akelnar if he'd been her lover, but dismisses the thought since they're siblings, horrifying Ariel. Sadie's thoughts return to the main puzzle: why Ariel hid her true identity as the Archmage Ashilde. In a cute thought bubble, Ariel explains it's because of her age, clarifying that while she's 1,000 years old, her time stopped when she was 24. Sadie looks out from the balcony, asking her if she isn't proud of her legacy and why she wouldn't tell him. Surrounded by magical energy, he reminds her that she's a legendary archmage whose achievements are still used worldwide. Ariel looks away sadly as Sadie thinks about the one achievement that was never recorded. She remains silent, her expression heavy with unspoken regret. Her eyes harden as she recalls the world of 1,000 years ago. In a bloody flashback, she remembers the irreparable damage and countless deaths, blaming herself for it all. Over a field of skulls, she declares herself the sinner who brought the world to ruin. A flashback shows the kings of Kelsion and Cradle declaring holy war on Arundel for consorting with the devil. A map on fire illustrates the combined forces of the Holy Empire and the Republic marching to attack the magic kingdom of Arundel. A fist slams a table as someone roars that their plan is crazy because it means war. An advisor confronts Arundel's royalty, questioning their decision to fight a coalition of empires by themselves. The dark-haired royals of Arundel remain confident, with the king smirking about giving the zealots something to do while the queen affirms their strength as a kingdom of wizards. A hand glows with immense magical power, signaling a call to arms. A forced mobilization order is issued, summoning every high-level wizard capable of range magic. An army of robed wizards gathers, answering the kingdom's summons. Ariel recalls how she and her brother Daniel, as royalty and archmages, went to the battlefield with their forces to face a demonic enemy. As lightning strikes a burning kingdom, she narrates how they unleashed magic of unimaginable power, wiping out all of their enemies. In a fiery flashback, she narrates that the war spread brutally and widely across the land. The scene dissolves into fading particles of light, transitioning through memory. In the past, her bare feet stumble across the scorched earth. Her younger self, with dark blue hair and golden eyes, looks on in horror at the devastation. She stands alone on a battlefield littered with the swords and banners of the fallen. As tears stream down her face, she thinks in despair that everyone died. Reaching out to the empty space before her, she desperately questions why. Collapsing in grief, she cries out, asking why she was left all alone. Lying amidst the wreckage of war, she lets out an anguished scream, repeatedly yelling, "Why?" Overwhelmed by sorrow, she takes all the blame upon herself, believing it's all her fault. A powerful, silent scream echoes across the desolate landscape of her memory. Her expression hardens with grim resolve, her face smudged with dirt and a cut on her cheek. She stands before a massive, swirling, cosmic portal, the source of the invasion. A glowing orb of immense golden power begins to form. The memory shifts to the enemy's followers, who reach toward the light, praying to their Lord of Halcyon. She glares, realizing with bitter certainty that you, the Lord of Halcyon, started all of this. With a firm stomp, she declares her intention to block the portal. Wreathed in divine flames, she vows to block not just the portal, but all ways the enemy can interfere. Tears of determination in her eyes, she gathers a blindingly bright sphere of magic. She unleashes her power, forming a massive, complex golden magic circle aimed at the portal. Glowing ancient runes materialize, channeling the immense sealing magic. The spell violently swirls and converges, shutting the dimensional rift. Her power spent, she begins to fall backward, her body going limp. A final tear escapes her eye as she loses consciousness. The narration explains how the portal was sealed, now a thorny runic scar on reality. Using all of her magic and might, she was left utterly alone in the aftermath, within a vast forest. The flashback ends on an image of a secluded house nestled deep within the peaceful woods. Through the imagery of shattered glass, she reveals her time in the forest was spent enduring for revenge and protecting the world. Back in the present, she walks away from Sidi, confessing that she is a sinner who ruined the world. With hardened eyes, she declares her intent to return to the forest. She explains to Sidi that she must continue to atone, ask for forgiveness, and pray for the world's well-being. Sidi soberly processes her confession, wondering if that's truly why she wants to go back to the forest. With a weary sigh, he concedes that it can't be helped. He summons the white-haired man, Ansel, who appears at his side. Sidi commands Ansel to prepare to leave immediately, and Ansel dutifully agrees. Confused by the sudden command, Ariel asks where they are going. Sidi looks at her intently, informing her that they are going outside the palace. He reveals his purpose, to see the world that Ariel believes she ruined. A magnificent royal carriage awaits them in the sunlit courtyard. Now inside, Ariel questions Sidi about their sudden trip outside the palace. Sidi turns away, answering her question with a playful, non-committal, why? His strange response leaves her momentarily confused. Looking out the window in amazement, Ariel is struck by the pristine roads and luxurious architecture of the city. She marvels at the sheer number of people walking through the bustling, peaceful streets. Observing the lively crowds everywhere, she realizes the city is thriving. A panoramic view reveals a grand, beautiful cityscape, confirming her thought that the entire city is well maintained. As they travel, Ariel observes the world outside with a stern and thoughtful gaze. The carriage comes to a smooth stop before an elegant building as its arrival is announced. Sidi gallantly offers his hand, helping Ariel step down from the magnificent royal carriage. She gazes up in awe at the tall, glamorous building before them. A well-dressed man and his staff bow in welcome, offering to guide them to the top floor of the hotel. Dismounting from the carriage, Ariel questions Sidi, wondering why he brought her to a hotel. Sidi explains he has something to show her from the top floor, which offers the best view. He leads the way, his footsteps echoing as he announces their arrival. Through a window, Ariel watches Sidi wait, who tells her it's almost time, leaving her confused. Sidi turns with a confident, knowing smile. He points out the window toward a grand castle in the distance, directing her attention. Ariel stares in the direction he pointed, her expression filled with confusion. Looking at the city skyline, She begins to say there's nothing there, but stops in confusion. Suddenly, a massive, glowing blue magic circle materializes in the sky above the city. An ornate airship emerges from the portal, causing Ariel to gasp in utter shock. As more airships fill the sky, she exclaims in disbelief, wondering what the flying machines are. With Ariel pressed against the glass in amazement, CD explains that they are regularly scheduled transport airships made possible by the development of a new fuel. CD gestures grandly toward the window, inviting her to see for herself. He proudly states that many new technologies that never existed before, like that airship, are now commonplace. CD thinks to himself that the world is not as ruined as Ariel believes. Overlooking the advanced cityscape, Ariel marvels that this world, where magic is integrated into life, is far more beautiful than the one she knew 1,000 years ago. Standing on a balcony with CD, Ariel is lost for words as she takes in the breathtaking view. She turns to him, her voice filled with awe as she asks the name of this country. CD reveals they are in the Elysium Empire, a nation united by science and technology. Ariel looks stunned, repeating the unfamiliar name to herself. In a flashback, a hand slams down on a map as a voice declares that Cradle is invading. A younger Ariel, at her desk, strategizes sending wizards to a valley and using fire magic to block the enemy. She looks up from her work, asking her brother if he heard the latest news. A man with dark blue hair reports that a small alliance of humans, elves, and dwarves has formed in the south, questioning the concept of a nation based on science and technology. Ariel asks if the alliance uses no magic, and her brother explains it was formed to avoid the ruin of war, offering to let her join. She bluntly refuses. Her brother proudly declares that after the war, he will teach the alliance that the entire world is magic, not just a tool for combat. A chibi Ariel worries his magic theory sounds too much like science, and that he'll be absorbed by the alliance, which he frantically denies. Back in the flashback, the younger Ariel smiles wistfully, hoping for a swift end to the war. Her brother looks at her with determination, agreeing that ending the war is their top priority. The narration explains how a small alliance began to sprout from the ashes of a world engulfed in destruction. That same alliance survived, growing into the magnificent empire that stands today in a world where everything else disappeared. In the present, Ariel closes her eyes, a peaceful smile gracing her lips. CD explains that with the dimensional gate she sealed, the world was free to develop without interference. Overlooking the cityscape, Ariel realizes with overwhelming joy that her 1,000 years of sacrifice were not in vain and helped create this beautiful world. Tears stream down her face as she's overcome by the beautiful reality that magic and science can coexist. CD gently cups her cheek, softly calling her name. He pulls her close, declaring himself the master of this empire, and inviting her to watch it develop by his side. On the sunlit balcony, he holds her tenderly, the world stretching out before them. Amidst a swirling vision of light and lilies, CD makes a grand proposal. "Be my empress, Ariel." He lifts her gloved hand to his lips, sealing his proposal with a gentle kiss. Ariel stares forward, her golden eyes wide with shock and uncertainty. The intimate moment lingers as their hands slowly part. A golden hourglass appears, marking a pivotal turn of events. Later, Ariel peeks out from a doorway, contemplating her next move. Looking out at the beautiful world, she decides she wants to see more of it, if only for a little while longer. The scene shifts to the vast, perfectly manicured gardens of the Imperial Palace. Sometime later, Ariel, now in a lavish red dress, slumps over a table in boredom, lamenting that with CD busy being the emperor, there's nothing to do and no one to play with. Slumped over a balcony, Ariel laments that she can't go anywhere alone since she doesn't know the palace layout and is unable to read or write. In a brief memory, she recalls taking care of a young boy, now feeling empty without him and awaiting a new handmaiden. Back in her red dress, she rests her chin on her hand, bored, and notes that her remote location means few people ever pass by. Suddenly, her head whips to the side with a questioning, "Huh?" as if she's heard something. Looking down, she spots two women in the gardens and observes that their unfamiliar outfits aren't those of maids or servants. As the long, white-haired woman glances back, Ariel reacts with a small exclamation of surprise. Struck by the woman's beauty, Ariel can only think, wow. A chibi version of Ariel blushes, thinking the woman seems very kind. As a new chapter begins, a thought bubble questions the identity of that woman. The brown-haired companion remarks that His Majesty was the one who brought her here. The white-haired woman, Lady Violet, explains she was on a quiet road to avoid stares when she saw Ariel, as her companion asks if she feels wronged by the situation. Her companion vents in frustration, questioning why His Majesty would cruelly send Violet to the temple to arrange his own wedding. Violet calmly explains it's her duty as a saint, but her companion insists it's too much, since Violet is also a candidate for Empress. Turning away with a somber expression, Lady Violet remains silent. Deciding to leave, Lady Violet tells her companion it's time to return to the temple. The scene darkens with a foreboding, scratchy texture, signaling a grim turn of events. Under the full moon, voices call out, directing someone toward a dark city alley. A crowd whispers anxiously, gathered in the shadowy alleyway. People stare in horror at a bloody scene, questioning if it's real and mentioning an investigator is on the way. Two men from the crowd gasp in shock as Lady Violet and her companion arrive. A swift sound marks Lady Violet's arrival at the disturbing scene. The crowd recognizes the newcomer, calling out to the saintess, Lady Violet. A witness points frantically toward the alley, exclaiming that there are traces of murder inside. Lady Violet walks forward with grim determination to investigate the scene herself. Her eyes widen slightly as she takes in the horrific sight, questioning what happened here. Staring down at the blood-soaked ground, she grimly wonders if it was a sacrificial ritual. Her companion speculates it must be the work of a cult, finding it hard to believe such a thing could happen in the secure imperial capital. The scene prompts Lady Violet to recall a divine message she recently received. She remembers a dark prophecy. Danger will come to the imperial palace as old disasters return in a new form. Meanwhile, people on the street gossip about strange occurrences at the palace, including the arrival of a woman claiming to be the emperor's master. Lady Violet is struck by an ominous feeling, sensing a dark premonition. A strange, dark energy seems to emanate from her hand, as she concludes that something doesn't feel right. Her companion connects the disaster from the prophecy to that woman, Ariel, who is competing with Violet for the Empress's title. The companion continues her tirade, stating that people are calling Ariel a witch from the eastern forest. She passionately declares her intent to reveal the truth about the woman of questionable origins who is now at the Emperor's side. Lady Violet calmly tells her companion that she's speaking too loudly and reminds her to be careful. Putting a finger to her lips, she explains her plan, noting that rumors must be allowed to spread slowly beneath the surface. She reveals her knowledge of the sacrificial rituals, predicting they are not a one-time event and will continue. As an image of a faceless crowd appears, she states that people's anxiety will continue to fester and grow. With a sinister smile, Lady Violet predicts that the moment rumors turn into doubt, public outcry will explode all at once. The scene shifts to an unaware Ariel, implying that she is the target of this simmering plot. At the estate of Marquis Kelton, a servant bursts in with news that the Emperor has chosen a woman. Bang! An unseen person slams their fist on a desk, shouting in disbelief. Priscilla Kelton, mother of Saintess Violet, glares angrily, believing her son Felix should have become emperor instead. She fumes over the injustice, enraged that the emperor would invent a woman to marry and force Violet to hear the news herself. In a fit of rage, Priscilla declares it's absurd to think Violet will be stripped of her position as empress. A hooded, dark-skinned man calmly advises her to simply drive the other woman away before the position is stolen for good. Priscilla looks up, startled but intrigued by the man's suggestion. Her expression hardens as she asks him if he has a plan. He proposes a cunning scheme, use Ariel's illiteracy to their advantage to grow their own influence. The hooded, dark-skinned man reveals that plans are already underway, as the Imperial Palace has chosen a maid for Ariel. He continues, explaining that he has managed to place someone from their side in that position. Two maids discuss a new job posting, with one remarking on the incredibly high salary and special allowances. Overhearing them, a woman with short pink hair is intrigued as the maids gossip about the high pay. The pink-haired woman peeks into an office, spotting a man with long white hair reviewing documents. The white-haired man looks up from his papers, his green eyes meeting her gaze. With newfound determination, the pink-haired woman announces her intention to apply for the position of handmaiden to the distinguished guest. A narrator introduces Rachel Bourbon, who will be Ariel's exclusive maid starting today, over a view of the magnificent palace. Inside a grand room, the white-haired man introduces Rachel to Ariel, and Rachel formally greets her new mistress. Ariel looks on with a slightly confused expression. The new handmaiden, Rachel, stands formally, her pointed ears hinting at her elven heritage. Rachel explains to a surprised Ariel that she is a half-elf whose mother came from the Forest clan. Ariel realizes this is why she sensed so little magic from Rachel, having previously assumed all elves were pure-blooded. The white-haired man explains that the Empire welcomes all humanoid species and that interracial marriages are now common. He assures Ariel that although Rachel is quiet, she will be a great help and offers his own assistance at any time. Thud. The door closes, leaving Ariel alone with her new handmaiden. Ariel sits in contemplation, wondering what it is she truly needs in this new world. Rachel suddenly appears with a tray, offering Ariel a cooling drink and leaving her momentarily surprised. Taking a sip, Ariel realizes she was thirsty, but wonders with suspicion how Rachel knew, questioning if she was being watched. A bright, sunny day illuminates the sprawling imperial palace. The next morning, Ariel slowly wakes up in her bed. As she rubs the sleep from her eyes, Rachel's voice explains she prepared something for her. Rachel presents a wash basin, startling Ariel with her sudden appearance. A flustered chibi Ariel realizes with a sweat drop that Rachel wasn't waking her up, but was likely watching her sleep. As Rachel stares intently, Ariel grows uneasy, thinking her new handmaiden is not normal and is watching her too closely. Feeling increasingly uncomfortable, Ariel desperately tries to think of a way to escape her handmaiden's constant surveillance. Ariel abruptly announces she's going to the Imperial Palace Library, catching a surprised Rachel off guard. Cheering that she's going to read, Ariel purposefully walks away, leaving a speechless Rachel behind. Rachel looks deeply puzzled, questioning why Ariel would go to the library to read a book when she has heard Ariel is illiterate. In the beautiful courtyard of the Imperial Library, Ariel wonders if she can browse the first floor freely. Once inside, Ariel begins to look around as Rachel follows, offering to retrieve any book she wants. Ariel declines, admitting she can't read and will just look at pictures, while internally celebrating her successful escape from Rachel. Rachel watches Ariel with a thoughtful expression as she walks deeper into the library. Her expression remains unreadable as she silently observes her new mistress. Ariel wanders the aisles, wishing she could find simple children's books to start with. She hopes to find a basic book so she can finally learn the alphabet of this era. Her eyes hardening with resolve, Ariel vows that she will master the imperial script. Back in her room, Ariel concludes that her top priority now is to adapt to life in the palace. She approaches Sidi and makes her request clear. She wants to learn how to read. Sidi listens to her plea with a reserved expression. To Ariel's shock, he firmly rejects her request, leaving her to demand why. Remembering how she taught a young Sidi to write, Ariel argues that it's his turn to teach her the imperial script. Sidi looks away, a conflicted and somber expression on his face. He quietly admits to her that he's anxious. With a serious gaze, Sidi looks down at her and asks what he should do. Ariel stares back at him, her golden eyes reflecting the weight of the moment. She reflects with regret that she had mistakenly believed he would easily forget their shared past and not be hurt by it. Sometime later in the library, Ariel pores over a book, thinking that despite Sidi's odd behavior, he isn't trying to imprison her. She recalls him smiling gently, telling her to read a book if she ever felt bored. Ariel concludes that since he didn't forbid her from coming to the library, he likely won't stop her from learning, even if he disapproves. The scene opens on a magnificent palace gleaming under a bright blue sky. In the garden, Rachel tutors Ariel on writing the word rabbit as she studies a book on a bench. Ariel concentrates on the book, thinking that by memorizing words, she'll eventually recognize patterns and learn the language. She flips through a children's book featuring a turtle and a rabbit, the unfamiliar script on the page. Her study is interrupted as a young boy with blonde hair timidly calls out to her. The boy smiles brightly, his cheerful expression radiating kindness. He explains that his teacher sent him to ask the honored guest a question, and Ariel agrees to listen. Ariel observes the boy, thinking to herself how cute he is and guessing he must be an apprentice wizard. Putting her book aside, she gives the boy her full attention and asks what his teacher wants. Stunned by her response, the young apprentice repeats the word seditious in shock. Whoosh! Ariel theatrically declares that the book was set on fire and is gone from this world, leaving the boy speechless with horror. She dismisses his concern, claiming the book was hers anyway, and tells the stunned boy to give up and return. A spark of curiosity lights up Ariel's golden eyes as she pauses in thought. Just as he turns to leave, she stops him, asking if there is a magic circle on the lining of his cloak. Ariel asks to inspect the cloak, and the young apprentice eagerly agrees. Examining the fabric, she recognizes a basic temperature control spell, noting it's an interesting approach. She points out that the spell must consume a lot of magic, and the boy confirms he can only use it briefly. Ariel explains the high energy cost is because the magic circle is unfinished, much to the boy's surprise. The apprentice looks utterly confused, wondering what she means and what needs to be connected. After a moment, Ariel announces she has fixed his cloak, explaining the magic will now be maintained with very little power. The boy puts on the cloak, which now glows with a complete, shimmering magic circle. He marvels that the temperature control works perfectly with his small amount of magic and wonders how she fixed it just by adding one line. The boy exclaims, "Wow," in amazement, and Ariel can't help but think how cute he is. Beaming with admiration, the young apprentice asks if she is good at magic. Ariel looks away with a slight blush, admitting to herself that she got carried away by her excitement over new magic. The boy looks up at her inquisitively, waiting for an answer. Leaning closer, Ariel warns him that if anyone finds out, he must pretend he discovered the improved magic formula on his own. He nervously agrees, feeling as if a phantom voice is warning him that he'll die if he reveals her secret. With renewed determination, the boy promises her that he will definitely keep it a secret. A voice from off-screen bids farewell to the honored guest as the boy departs. With a confident smile, Ariel thinks she has successfully silenced him, reflecting on how this practical magic is more fun than the combat spells she knows. Suddenly, Rachel appears with a very surprised expression, remarking that Lady Ariel seems to know magic well. Caught completely off guard by Rachel's sudden appearance, Ariel stammers in surprise. She turns to see her handmaiden standing there, realizing she forgot about her lack of presence and now has one more person to silence.